And that's pretty much how it went. Leo finished recounting his meeting at the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight. Kane and Julian Reed wore grave expressions. Nearby, Ava was slumped on the sofa, rubbing her sore wrist and glaring daggers at Leo and Kane, looking like she wanted to eat them both alive. But she knew they were discussing serious business, so she kept her fury contained to a silent, piercing stare. "You two heartless bastards," she fumed internally, "leaving me here to fill out that mountain of paperwork. I'm so not done with you." "Director Jensen?" Julian stroked his chin, his mind working quickly. "As far as I know, the BSO doesn't have a director by that name. Two possibilities. One, he's a recent transfer, so he's not on our radar yet. That's plausible. Intel on the BSO is notoriously hard to get. Two, he's been in Ethelberg for a while, but has kept his presence quiet, operating from the shadows. Based on your description of his methods, I'd say the second option is far more likely." Julian's brow furrowed. The situation was more complicated than he'd anticipated. This sudden appearance of Director Jensen was an unscheduled move on the board, a variable that could disrupt his own meticulously laid plans. The chance was small, but what if? For the sake of the Reed family, Julian had to consider every possible outcome and prepare a counter for each. "Let's put a pin in this for now," he said, his voice distant. "I need to think." With that, he walked into his study. Whenever he needed to think deeply, he would lock himself away in the absolute quiet of the room and play Go against himself. Leo let out a long breath. He didn't even get to finish the exhale before a throw pillow came flying at his head. Shit, an assassin. Leo snatched it out of the air with nimble reflexes and looked up to meet Ava's furious eyes. "All right, you two, care to explain yourselves?" she asked, her voice a low growl. "Do you have any idea what my last few hours have been like?" Leo and Kane exchanged a look of pure dread. They both knew what it meant. "We're screwed. We forgot about the little princess." "Ahem. I think I parked over the line. I should probably go move my car," Kane said, already backing away toward the door. Leo tried to make a break for it too, but Ava launched herself off the sofa and tackled him, pinning him to the floor. He could only watch in despair as Kane made his escape. "Kane, you son of a bitch. Your family's estate doesn't even have parking lines." Leo cursed Kane's entire family tree in his head, vowing bloody revenge. But for now, he was trapped under Ava, who was cracking her knuckles ominously. He forced a weak smile. "Now listen, I didn't mean to—" Ouch! Ava bared her teeth and, without another word, leaned down and sank them into his shoulder. "What the hell? Ava, are you a dog?" "Ow, ow, ow." He yelped as she bit down hard, holding on for a long moment before finally letting go. Even through his shirt, Leo knew there was going to be a perfect impression of her teeth in his skin. "Who did you just call a dog?" Ava snapped, flashing her teeth again as if threatening a second round if his answer was wrong. "Me. I'm the dog." "Oomph." She snorted, standing up and sitting back on the sofa. She tossed the pen and paper she'd been working on at him. "You write the statement, and you're not done until my brother comes out." "Huh?" Leo asked, dumbfounded. He picked up the papers and saw the last sentence Ava had been writing. "Julian, Kane, and Leo are giant Moro." The last word was half finished. He glanced at the other pages. They were filled, top to bottom, with creatively vicious insults aimed at the three of them. Leo's mouth twitched. This girl held a serious grudge. "So," Leo said, testing the waters, "how about we go out? Get something to eat? Go for a walk?" The last thing he wanted to do was write a formal statement. Professor Miller's self-criticism essays were bad enough, and Dylan always wrote those for him. "No, you have to write it." Ava puffed out her cheeks, adamant that he share her misery. Leo raised an eyebrow. If that's how she wanted to play it, then the gloves were coming off. He gathered up all the pages she had written, neatly stacking them together. Ava, he said casually, "you wouldn't want your brother to see what you were really writing on this statement, would you? Kane and I don't care, but if Julian found out you were sitting here, supposedly writing a formal account, but were actually just insulting him to his face." TSK. "Well, I guess I'll just get to writing. But I'm not like some people. I don't use such vulgar language." Leo's voice was dripping with insinuation. He said he was going to write, but he hadn't even picked up the pen, just kept straightening the stack of incriminating papers. You're threatening me." Ava's eyes went wide. She couldn't believe he would dare. "Threatening you? Isn't this just the truth?" Leo asked innocently. "Didn't you write these words?" "I did, but then that settles it." Leo stood up, holding the papers, and started walking toward the study. I just remembered something I needed to talk to Julian about." Wait. Ava scrambled to her feet and grabbed his arm, her tone suddenly meek. "I just remembered I'm starving. Let's go out to eat and take a walk." If Julian found out about this, she'd be grounded for a month. Leo was laughing internally, but kept his expression puzzled. Why are you stopping me? I really do have business with him. Then at least put my papers down. No need. I'll just take them in with me to work on. Ava's face flushed a deep red. He was doing this on purpose. Leo felt a surge of triumph. That's for biting me. Today, the spoiled young miss was getting a lesson in karma. Ava bit her lower lip, a sly glint suddenly appearing in her eyes. Before he knew what was happening, she stood on her toes, hooked an arm around his neck, and planted a soft, quick kiss on his cheek. I know I was wrong, she whispered, batting her eyelashes and looking up at him with a pitiful expression. Can we please go get dinner? I'm so hungry. She had gone nuclear, deploying her ultimate weapon, shameless charm. Leo froze, the gentle pressure on his cheek short-circuiting his brain. Damn it, a critical miscalculation. He had forgotten she had this self-taught super move. Please? Let's go eat, she cooed, gently shaking his arm and looking at him with wide, pleading eyes. The assault wasn't over. She was pressing the attack. Looking at her impossibly cute face, Leo's heart, the traitor, began to pound in his chest. He held out for 2 whole seconds before sighing in defeat. Fine, let's go get dinner. Leo Evans defeated. The first thing Ava did was destroy the evidence. Without a moment's hesitation, she used Julian's lighter to set the incriminating papers ablaze right in front of Leo. Now, sitting in a booth at a Korean barbecue joint, Leo replayed the scene in his mind. Ava, her back to him, watching the pages turn to ash. He could have sworn he'd seen a long, black tail sprout from her backside and 2 little horns pop up on her head. A perfect little demon. Why are you looking at me like that? Ava asked, chewing on a piece of grilled brisket. She had a feeling his stare wasn't entirely innocent. Oh, nothing. Leo chuckled nervously. He wasn't about to tell her he thought she looked like a devil. If he made her mad again, he'd have to find another way to appease her, and since the evidence was now a pile of cinders, his leverage was gone. Oof. Ava dismissed him with a snort and went back to eating, channeling her frustration into her appetite. She was eating an unusual amount tonight. Meanwhile, in the director's office at the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight. Director, we finally get a psychological consultant in here, and you just let him walk away? Alex Young asked, sitting across from Director Jensen with a look of exasperation. Jensen said nothing, instead sliding a thick file across the desk. Alex picked it up. It was Leo Evans's dossier. If Leo could see it, he'd realize that what Jensen had read aloud earlier was just the tip of the iceberg. The file contained a complete record of Leo's life, from birth to the present day. It included everything from his habit of sleeping in class to his daily dietary patterns. This was the power of the BSO. This is Leo. Alex's face was a mask of disbelief. He couldn't fathom that the brilliant young man he'd connected with that morning, a kindred spirit, was somehow tied to the Reed family. Keep reading, Jensen said, his voice a low rumble. Focus on his activity over the last 2 weeks. Alex turned the page, his eyes widening with every line. The explosion at the Phone Alliance factory last night. That was Emmy whispered. Is he really just a college student? He noticed that all of Leo's abnormal behavior had begun within the last 15 days. Before that, he was, for all intents and purposes, a completely ordinary student. A possibility immediately sprang to Alex's mind. Could he be one of the operatives from New York? Jensen shook his head, lighting a cigarette without answering. After a long silence, he asked in a heavy voice, Alex, do you remember the question I asked you the day we first met? I remember. You asked me what I would do if I had the power to stop all conflict. And do you remember your answer? Of course. I said if that day ever came, I would not hesitate to extinguish the fires of war and bring true peace to the world. That's why I chose to follow you. Jensen nodded slowly and let out a long sigh. Yes, true world peace. His tone was laced with an immeasurable sorrow. But today that kid told me that as long as human greed and selfishness exist, true peace is impossible. He paused. No one wants an empty lot, but the second you build a house, everyone wants to own it. Today, Jensen said, a self-deprecating smile touching his lips. I was the one who got schooled. He had fought for his ideal world for over a decade, only to end up with nothing but ashes, exiled to this small city of Ethelberg to run a broken-down branch office. I could tell he knew what answer I wanted to hear, Jensen continued, but he gave me his own answer anyway. Because, deep down, he doesn't believe in my philosophy at all. He's not the first, and he certainly won't be the last. Alex, Jensen asked, his conviction seeming to waver. Is there any point in me holding on? Alex fell silent. The biggest reason he'd followed Jensen was because he had been moved by the world Jensen had described, an era of peace, free of strife. But now, Jensen himself seemed to be wavering. No, the truth was his conviction had started to falter the moment he was exiled to Ethelberg, the moment he'd let the Bureau fall into its current state of neglect. After a long moment, Alex looked up, his eyes filled with a renewed firmness. Director, perhaps Leo is right. But even if he is, does that make our efforts worthless? Someone has to be willing to do the work, right? Maybe our efforts will be in vain. Maybe the world we aspire to is nothing but a fantasy, a utopia. But I believe that as long as we try, it has meaning. If I die one day on the road to that impossible world, that will be my end, and I will be proud of it. Jensen listened, his expression unchanging. He silently lit another cigarette and smoked, lost in thought. You can go now, he finally said. Alex nodded. He knew the director needed time alone. He closed the doors softly behind him and, readjusting his own mindset, returned to his work. The room was silent, leaving Jensen alone with his thoughts. It felt as though two figures were facing off in his mind, Leo on one side, Alex on the other. One believed in a cold, brutal reality. The other chased an intangible utopia. Their words echoed in his head. He sat there, watching through the window as the sun set and darkness fell. The ashtray on his desk overflowed. He lost track of how many cigarettes he'd smoked, how long he'd been sitting there. Suddenly, he let out a soft, humorless laugh. His voice, hoarse from the smoke, filled the quiet room. Seriously, schooled twice in one day. These kids nowadays, they're really something else. He picked up his phone, found Leo's number in the dossier, and dialed. It was answered quickly. Jensen spoke first. It's me. Leo was walking with Ava along the riverbank. He recognized the voice immediately. What's up? Jensen spoke first. Your plan? I'm in. Come to my office in a bit. We'll talk. Really? You're not worried this whole thing will get your entire BSO staff wiped out? Let it be wiped out. They're a bunch of useless slackers anyway. All right, I'll be there soon. Leo hung up. He had no idea why Jensen had changed his mind, but it was undoubtedly good news for him. Who was that? Ava asked. That director from this afternoon. Jensen. Leo turned and crouched in front of her. What are you doing? Something urgent came up. We need to get back fast. I can carry you. Ava's face turned red. She suspected he was just trying to get fresh with her. Oomph. If you're tricking me, you're dead, she threatened, whispering menacingly in his ear as she climbed onto his back. Leo's hands securely cupped her knees, and he lifted her effortlessly. Her hair brushed against his cheek, carrying a faint, sweet scent, and his traitorous heart sped up again. He maintained a stoic expression as he walked. After a moment, Ava realized something was wrong. Her eyes narrowed. Leo, she said coolly. Yeah? What's up? Aren't you in a hurry? I am. Then why are you walking slower than the old men out for their evening stroll? Ava knew she'd been had. She angrily twisted his ear and shouted, Put me down. No, I'll speed up for real this time, I promise. With a sigh of resignation, Leo picked up the pace, and they were back at the Reed estate in no time. Julian was still locked in his study. Leo said a quick word to Ava, then grabbed Kane. Kane, let's go. Time for some real work. What are you planning now, kid? The BSO is a go. We need to head over there. Fine, I'll give you a ride. I'm practically your chauffeur at this point. Leo grinned. Then a thought struck him. Oh, and Kane? Let's bring some explosives. We'll need them. Kane froze mid-stride. He turned his head mechanically, his eyes wide with disbelief. Bring what? Explosives? To where? The BSO. You son of a bitch. Kane practically leaped into the air, pointing a trembling finger at Leo, too furious to speak. You kid, are you really going to blow up the damn Bureau of Syndicate Oversight? Night fell on Ethelberg. A black sedan sped through the city streets. Kane sat behind the wheel, his expression grim. He was really starting to feel like Leo's personal driver. Beside him, Leo was scribbling furiously on a stack of papers, a look of excitement on his face. Okay, but seriously, you're not actually going to blow up the BSO, right? Kane asked, his eyes fixed on the road. Leo had made him bring a small amount of C4, not enough to level the building, but still incredibly dangerous. This wasn't some remote warehouse. This was downtown Ethelberg. An explosion here would be a catastrophe. Relax, Leo said. I'm a model citizen of Ethelberg. Why would I go around blowing up federal buildings at night? Good. For a second there, I was worried you'd lost your damn mind. I'm doing it tomorrow, in broad daylight. SCRECH. Kane slammed on the brakes. The tires shrieked against the asphalt. Leo lurched forward, saved only by his seatbelt. The street was empty, thankfully. Otherwise, it would have been a textbook case of reckless driving leading to a family's tears. What was that for? Leo demanded, turning to glare at Kane. Is her driving getting worse? What was that for? What the hell are you planning? Kane grabbed Leo by the collar, his voice rising. Blowing up the BSO in broad daylight? Are you insane, Leo? Do you have any idea how much trouble this will bring down on you, on the Reed family? And the BSO is right across the street from the damn police department. You're going to set off a bomb next to the cops? You're getting more lawless by the day. Kane unleashed a torrent of abuse. He honestly couldn't pinpoint when Leo's behavior had become more reckless than the syndicate's. Even they wouldn't dare pull a stunt like this. Sometimes Kane wondered who had corrupted the kid, or maybe he was just born to raise hell. Leo kept his mouth shut, mostly to avoid the spittle flying from Kane's mouth. When Kane finally ran out of steam, Leo wiped his face and said through gritted teeth, "Kane, could you at least let me finish a goddamn sentence?" "Fine talk. What possible secret plan could justify this?" "Just drive. I'll tell you on the way." "No, you tell me now, or I'm not taking you anywhere near that building. The BSO is in enough danger as it is." Leo sighed and explained the plan he had worked out with Director Jensen. "And that's the gist of it. So I'm going to blow up the BSO tomorrow, and the director himself signed off on it. So what the hell are you so worked up about?" Kane listened, his expression turning from fury to utter disbelief. He felt like he was dreaming. You're not messing with me. If you don't believe me, you can ask Jensen yourself when we get there. Now drive the damn car." Leo snapped. Did he really seem that unhinged? Kane's perception of him was seriously skewed. If this were Julian, he wouldn't even ask what the plan was. He'd just worry if Leo had brought enough explosives. Kane put the car back in gear, and soon they arrived at the BSO. The entire building was dark, like a haunted monolith. Everyone had clearly gone home for the day, which meant Director Jensen was likely the only one inside. Leo and Kane pushed open the main doors and, following the path from Leo's memory, quickly found the director's office. "Knock, knock, knock. Enter." Jensen's voice came from within. Leo pushed the door open. The director was in the exact same spot, smoking a cigarette. Leo wondered if the man had moved at all since he'd left. Did he not need to use the restroom? As Leo and Kane entered, Jensen's eyes flicked to the bag in Kane's hand, then settled on Kane himself with a long, measuring look. A faint smile played on his lips. "You certainly don't waste any time." "I'm a man who values efficiency," Leo said. "And it's convenient that you're the only one here." He turned to Kane. "All right, Kane, go set the charges and the detonator. Remember, put them somewhere discreet and use small amounts. I want intimidation, not demolition. If we actually bring this building down, our director Jensen will be very upset." Kane shot a cautious glance at Jensen, then nodded slowly. He walked out of the room with the bag of explosives. The second the door closed behind him, he let out a long breath, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. "Terrifying," he whispered to himself. Jensen had only looked at him for a second, but Kane had felt an immense pressure crashing down on him, so intense he hadn't dared to breathe. It was like being sized up by a predator. He was certain that Director Jensen was no simple bureaucrat. He'd seen blood, and plenty of it. "I can't believe that kid can talk to a monster like that without batting an eye," Kane muttered, then began to move through the building, planting the charges. As he worked, a strange thought occurred to him. Hey, why am I taking orders from Leo? He was acting as his driver, his muscle, his goddamn gopher. He was basically Leo's sidekick. He couldn't remember when it had started, but somewhere along the line, he had begun to trust Leo, just as he trusted Julian. Back in the office, Leo and Jensen sat across from each other, just as they had that afternoon. Curiosity gleamed in Leo's eyes. He leaned forward slightly, looking the man straight in the eye. "What made you change your mind so quickly?" Finally decided to face reality. "No, quite the opposite." Jensen shook his head, extinguishing his cigarette in the ashtray. For the first time, he stood up from his chair. He walked to the window, pushed it open, and closed his eyes, letting the night wind wash over him. After a moment, he took a deep breath and opened his eyes, his gaze now sharp and resolute. "I've finally figured it out. Some things, even if the outcome is meaningless, even if there is no outcome at all, the act of doing them is what gives them meaning." He turned, his eyes burning with intensity as he looked at Leo. "I've agreed to help you because, in my view, the Reed family isn't a typical syndicate. They could be a valuable partner, and my goal is simple. A world without conflict is a monumental task. I don't know if I can achieve it, but at the very least, I have to try, and Ethelberg will be my first step." Jensen's gaze was like a blade, all traces of his former weariness gone. "I want Ethelberg City to be free of syndicates," he said, each word landing with the weight of a hammer. "I want Ethelberg City to be free of conflict. Ethelberg City free of conflict." Leo repeated the words softly, a little surprised. He hadn't expected the grizzled man before him to be so damn stubborn. What could have happened in his past to set him on such an uncompromising path? If you want Ethelbert to be free of syndicates, Leo asked, curious, then why partner with the Reeds? Like I said, in my eyes, the Reeds don't count as a syndicate. A slight smile touched Jensen's lips. I have my own yardstick. So, the Phone Alliance and the Lynn Syndicate. You have to take them out. Correct. And that is the basis of our cooperation. Jensen sat back down, lit another cigarette, and took a long, satisfying drag. I will help you deal with the Phone Alliance. In return, you will help me deal with the Lynn Syndicate. That's a beneficial arrangement for the Reed family as well, isn't it? Leo didn't answer. That wasn't his call to make. He was going after the phones because of Ava, and because his system demanded it. As for Jensen's proposal to team up against the Lynn Syndicate, Leo had only one thought. Not my problem. That was between Jensen and Julian. He was only concerned with the phones. Once he beat them and completed his mission, they could fight whoever they wanted. He didn't care, as long as Ava was kept out of it. The most pressing matter was cleaning up the BSO. Without that, any talk of cooperation was just hot air. You couldn't expect Julian to ally with a bunch of quiet quitters. When the bullets started flying, what were you supposed to do when your allies claimed they were feeling depressed and needed to clock out? Fixing the rot within the BSO was priority number one. Direct. Jensen, Leo caught himself, quickly glancing at the man's face. Thankfully, he either didn't notice the slip or didn't care about the overly familiar address. So, I can proceed with our original plan and start dealing with your people. Yes, you can leave Alex Young alone. He doesn't need it. Got it. So everyone but Alex is dead weight. Leo nodded, then asked with a mischievous grin, Director, what would you do if, at the end of all this, the only people left in this entire bureau were you and Alex? Jensen remained silent. Knock, knock, knock. Leo, it's all set. Kane's voice came from outside. The charges and detonator were in place. Leo stood up, walked to the door, and then turned back to Jensen with a grin, holding out his hand. Jensen glanced at him, then opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of papers filled with names. The personnel files for everyone at the bureau are here. Leo took the list. A quick scan told him the numbers weren't too high. Kane should be able to handle it in one night. All right, I'm heading out. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow? What are you coming here for tomorrow? To work, of course. I'm the psychological consultant here, remember? Leo said from the doorway, looking back at Jensen as if he were crazy. I just got hired today. That makes me one of you now. We're practically family. Besides, if I show up tomorrow, it'll help reduce suspicion, don't you think? Jensen's mouth twitched. He had a growing suspicion that Leo's employment was not going to be a good thing for the BSO. Get out, he said, waving him away impatiently. He was already planning it. He had to find a way to get rid of this kid. He was just too damn weird. Back in the car, Leo turned to Kane with a solemn expression. Kane, this next mission is crucial. The survival of the Reed family depends on it. I can't trust anyone else with this. You're the only one. You have to help me. This is all for the family. Kane's eye twitched. He wasn't falling for that corporate motivational bullshit. So, he said through gritted teeth, what do you want me to do now? Leo immediately handed him the list from Jensen, along with the stack of papers he'd been writing in the car earlier. What's this? A list of all BSO personnel. And this? Threat letters I just wrote. Kane's eyelid twitched violently. He looked down at the papers Leo had shoved at him. Scrawled in jagged, crude letters was a single sentence. 3 days, and you are dead. He flipped through a few more pages. The messages were all variations on the same theme. 2 days, and you are dead. Tonight you are dead. Tomorrow you go boom. You are dead. Kane was speechless. This is what he called a threat letter. I need you to run these out tonight, Leo said. Make sure every single one of them sees their letter first thing in the morning. What do you think I am? A skeleton key. How am I supposed to get these into their houses? Fold them into paper airplanes and throw them through their windows. Throw them up your ass. Kane was starting to lose it. He hadn't had a decent night's sleep in days, and now he had to work overtime on this nonsense. And it was a huge job. He couldn't do it alone. He'd have to call in some guys. Suddenly, he glared at Leo. And what are you going to be doing tonight? Going home to sleep, Leo said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I have to work tomorrow. I'm a psychological consultant for the BSO now. If I'm late, they'll dock my pay. That was the last straw for Kane. No way. You're coming with me to deliver these damn letters. Don't be ridiculous. I'm a student. It's not appropriate for me to be doing this. You just now remembering you're a student? Of course. I have an 8 a.m. class the day after tomorrow. It's the last lecture of the semester, The professor is going over the final exam review. Damn it. Kane clutched his head in his hands. It was impossible to talk to Leo. The guy was on another planet. They were planning to blow up a federal building, and he was worried about a damn class review? How could his brain jump like that? Kane couldn't take it anymore. He threw open his door, stalked around the car, yanked Leo's door open, and kicked him out onto the curb. Hey, what the hell? Click. Kane slammed the door and locked it. He glared at Leo through the window. I'm going to deliver your goddamn threat letters. You can walk your ass home. With that, he stomped on the gas and peeled out, leaving Leo stunned on the sidewalk. Shit. Left with no choice, Leo figured he'd just get a ride share. But it was late, and cars were scarce. He stood by the road, pulled out his phone, and sent a message to Ava. Leo, Kane just ditched me on the side of the road. Crying face Ava. He did what? Leo sighed fine. I can't blame him. He's busy. I get it. Leo, I'll just try to get a car home. It's so late, if I'll find one. Leo, don't worry about me. It's getting a little cold out. I'll text you when I get home. Ava, where are you? I'll have Rook and Knight come get you. Leo, oh no, you don't have to do that. It's too much trouble. Leo, location pin Leo. I'll just wait right here then. Smiling face with smiling eyes, Ava. Okay, I'll tell them to hurry. Leo smiled, pocketed his phone, and leaned against a lamppost. He lit a cigarette he'd swiped from Jensen's office and glanced disdainfully in the direction Kane had driven off. You're thinking too small, my friend, he thought. How about the boss's daughter on my side? You think I need a ride from you? The next morning, Leo showered, got dressed, and headed out in high spirits. It was his first official day of work, and he had to make a good impression on his new colleagues. As he left his apartment complex, he saw Kane's car parked nearby. Whoa, look at those dark circles. Rough night, Leo remarked as he slid into the passenger seat. Kane's eyes were shadowed and puffy. He clearly hadn't slept a wink. And he hadn't. In order to deliver all of Leo's ridiculous threat letters, Kane had called in his crew and worked through the entire night, just barely finishing the job before dawn. You know, Kane, at your age, you really need to start taking care of yourself. Click. Kane, his face a stony mask, pulled out his pistol, leveled it at Leo's head, and thumbed off the safety. One more word, he said, his voice flat, and I will put you to sleep permanently. Who the hell do you think is the reason I didn't get any sleep? And now you have the nerve to act concerned. Ahem. My mistake, boss, Leo said with a nervous laugh, gently pushing the gun away. Best to know when to back down. Oomph. Kane holstered the weapon and tossed a black earpiece to Leo. We'll use this to communicate during the operation. I can't go inside, so give me the signal, and I'll hit the detonator from outside. Why can't I have the detonator? I can press it myself. Because, you moron, you're supposed to be reducing your own suspicion, remember? Kane finally snapped. The BSO is across from the police department. The second those charges go off, they're going to search the place. Where are you going to hide a detonator? Oh, right. Leo nodded like a bobblehead. Kane seemed particularly volatile today. One wrong move, and he might explode. Better not to provoke him. Kane stomped on the accelerator. All he wanted was to get to the BSO and dump this irritating kid out of his car. On the way, Leo asked, You're sure that amount of C won't cause any casualties, right? After all, he was going to be inside the building. He didn't care if anyone else died, but he'd rather not get blown up himself. Relax. The charges are small, and I put them all in empty storage rooms. It's just for show. Good? Oh, by the way, this is my first time running an op like this. We should give it a name. What do you want to call it? Let's see, today is October 23rd. How about Operation 1, 2, 3 Boom? Whatever you want. And we need code names. I see that in all the movies. Kane's face was turning a dangerous shade of purple. He didn't want to say another word to Leo. He swore that after this was over, he was cutting ties. If he saw Leo on the street, he'd cross to the other side. He was genuinely afraid that spending too much time with him would make him go crazy, too. A few minutes later, they arrived at the BSO. Leo hopped out and gave Kane a reassuring look over his shoulder. Kane didn't see it. He just floored it, disappearing from Leo's sight in a cloud of exhaust. What's his hurry? Leo muttered. Am I really that scary? He straightened his shirt and strode into the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight. He checked his watch, 9:30 a.m. The official start time was 8:00 a.m. But, so what? He didn't need the money, and it wasn't like Jensen was going to dock his pay. You're finally here. Alex Young was sitting at the front desk. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Leo and hurried over. Director Jensen told me everything, he whispered. Whatever you need, I'll fully support you. I've already checked the locations where the charges were placed. No one will go near them. Leo gave Alex a surprised look. So this guy was in Jensen's inner circle, to be trusted with something this important. All right, you go to your thing. I'm going to clock in. Okay, if you need. Wait, what are you doing? Alex blinked, thinking he must have misheard. Going to work. What's with that look? Leo asked, puzzled. Didn't I just get hired as the psychological consultant yesterday? Did you forget already? I didn't forget, but Alex opened his mouth, then closed it again. He didn't know what to say. Leo wasn't wrong, but what kind of person in this situation will be thinking about their day job? Leo paid him no mind and walked further into the main office. Just as he expected, groups of agents were huddled together, whispering amongst themselves. Many of them were clutching the threat letters he'd written the night before. What do you think these letters mean? Is this some kind of prank? Doesn't seem like it. But who has the reach to deliver these to all of us in one night? I don't even get what mine means. Look, it says, might as well kill you too. What is that supposed to mean? Maybe the real target is just one person. Watching them furrow their brows, trying to decipher his nonsensical threats, Leo found it all rather amusing. Clap, clap, clap. He clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention. Good morning, everyone. You may have seen me yesterday, but allow me to introduce myself properly. My name is Leo Evans, and starting today, I will be serving as your psychological consultant. I heard yesterday that the psychological state of this office is quite severe. The weight of this responsibility kept me up all night, and I've decided to begin treatment immediately. In a moment, I'd like you all to come to my office one by one for a consultation. I'll be waiting. Leo smiled, then followed Alex to his new office. The BSO agents listened, their faces twitching. Kept you up all night? Then why were you an hour and a half late? Not even they dared to be that late. Getting caught by Jensen meant a hit to their paycheck. The chatter started up again, the threat letters completely forgotten. So what's the verdict on this Leo guy? My take? Based on yesterday and today, he's just going through the motions. I agree. If he actually wanted to do his job, would he have left early yesterday and shown up late today? In that case, let's humor him. We can go in one by one and have a little chat. Sounds good. We'll treat it as a welcome for the new guy. Following Alex's lead, Leo arrived at his office. On the desk, a microphone was set up on a stand. As you requested, Alex explained, his face serious as he adjusted his glasses. Press this button, and your voice will be broadcast throughout the entire bureau. We've also modified it so that it won't be traceable if anyone investigates later. Leo fiddled with the microphone curiously and nodded. Got it. On your way out, can you tell them they can start coming in one by one? He sank into the comfortable desk chair with a long sigh, raising his eyebrows. This chair was nice. Maybe he could find a way to take it home. Wait, you're not actually going to treat them, are you? Alex frowned. They don't have any psychological problems. You know that, right? Leo looked at Alex and heaved a dramatic sigh. Alex, my friend, I believe your work ethic has some serious issues. As the BSO's psychological consultant, it is my sworn duty to treat my colleagues. And what are you doing right now? You're encouraging me to commit malpractice. You're even slandering your coworkers, accusing them of faking their illnesses. You have no compassion for them. Leo shook his head, his face a mask of sorrow. You can go now, Alex. I'm very disappointed in you. Alex stood there, his face turning green. He was literally shaking with rage. He pointed a trembling finger at himself, staring at Leo in disbelief. My work ethic has issues. In all his time at the BSO, this was the first time anyone had ever questioned his dedication. Alex took a series of deep breaths, telling himself not to get angry. Anger was bad for his health. Clenching his jaw, he turned and walked out of the office, each step a monumental effort. BM, he slammed the door behind him, making everyone in the main office jump. You guys, Alex bit out going one by one. Without another word, he stormed off. He needed to cool down. The agent stared after him, completely bewildered. What's with Alex? He's usually so mild-mannered. Damn, that new kid has some skills. We've been trying to piss Alex off for years, and he managed it in 5 minutes. I wonder what happened in there. No idea, but I respect it. So who's going first? A burly man stood up and grinned at the others. I'll go. Everyone laughed. This was Tank, one of the original ringleaders of the slacker movement at the BSO. Go easy on him, Tank. Don't scare the new guy. Yeah, the last consultant ran off because of that ugly mug of yours. Try to rein it in a little. Tank waved a dismissive hand. He didn't care about any of that. If Leo knew what was good for him, he'd just keep his head down and collect a paycheck. They could coexist peacefully. But if he tried to stir things up, Tank wouldn't hesitate to use his own methods to scare the pretty boy away. Inside the office, Leo had put on the earpiece from Kane and was testing the connection. Static. Burrito King, can you hear me? Burrito King, do you copy? Burrito King, respond if you can hear me. Kane's voice came through, crystal clear. Leo frowned, annoyed. Kane, we just went over this. During an operation, we use code names. What if someone hears you say my name? And I already told you what our code names are in the car. The line went silent. In the distance, Leo thought he heard the sound of something shattering. A moment later, Kane's voice came back, strained through gritted teeth. Pretty boy, pistol copy. Awaiting your signal. A satisfied smile spread across Leo's face. Burrito King copies. How are things on your end, pretty boy pistol? Yes, those were the code names Leo had decided on. Leo was Burrito King. Kane was pretty boy pistol. On a rooftop not far from the BSO, Kane lowered his binoculars and took several deep breaths, silently chanting, "Don't get angry, don't get angry. Anger is bad for your health." At his feet lay a pile of shattered glass, the remains of the water bottle he had just smashed in a fit of rage. He calmly took a sniper rifle from a black case, assembled it, set it in position, attached a suppressor, and aimed it at one of the BSO's windows. All set. I'll wait for your signal. A few warning shots to intimidate them, then detonate the charges, right? That's the plan. Just follow my lead. Roger that. Maintaining radio silence until then. Good job, pretty boy pistol. Kane's soul felt weary. He never wanted to work with Leo again. Click. Just as Leo was about to chat with Kane a bit more, the office door was shoved open. A mountain of a man walked in and sat down in front of him. Ahead, Dr. Evans, hello. My name's Tank. Oh, hello. Leo's eyes narrowed, looking at the large man with displeasure. Didn't even knock before entering my office? Fine. You'll be the example I make today. Leo pulled a pair of black-rimmed glasses from somewhere and put them on, giving him a somewhat scholarly air. A closer look, however, would reveal that the frames had no lenses. Tank, is it? So, what seems to be the problem? Doctor, I'm depressed. I've been for a while now. Tank said this with a wide grin on his face, looking anything but depressed. Leo's expression remained flat. He nodded. I see. And do you often feel down or hopeless? Oh yeah. Every day I come to work, I lose all motivation. The moment I sit at my desk, I just feel like I want to die. So, if you didn't have to come to work, you wouldn't be depressed. Is that an accurate assessment? Yes. That's exactly what I mean. Tank nodded eagerly, a hint of excitement in his eyes. He hadn't expected the new consultant to be so sharp to get it right away. But Leo's next words left him completely stunned. Well, in that case, the solution is quite simple. Go to the front desk and find Alex Young. You can file your resignation papers with him. Just tell him I sent you. He won't give you any trouble. From now on, you won't have to work anymore, and your depression will be cured. Resign. Tank repeated, his mind reeling. Wait, Dr. Evans, how do we get to resigning? According to regulations, you can't fire me without severance pay. Leo nodded calmly. Then we'll pay you, he said, his tone dismissive. Take up the specifics with Alex. That's not my department. My only job is to cure you. Based on what you've told me, work makes you depressed, so the logical solution is to stop working. Tank's face turned red with frustration. No, that's not what I meant, he said, standing up and gesturing wildly. What I mean is, work makes me depressed, so you should just give me some time off. Time off only lasts for a few days. Listen to me, your condition is severe. You need to resign. We can't delay this any longer. No, really, I just need a few days off and I'll be fine. I know my own condition. You know, Leo's expression shifted, and he stood, his voice suddenly booming. Are you the doctor, or am I? Do you have a counselor's license? Do you have a master's degree? You have nothing, and you dare to lecture me. He sat back down and pointed to the door. Go find Alex and file your resignation. This is my official medical advice as the BSO's psychological consultant. If you refuse to comply, you will be considered to be resisting treatment. In that case, you'll be terminated, and you won't get a cent of severance pay. Tank's face darkened. He hadn't expected this pretty boy to be so aggressive. Resign? They might as well kill him. He and the others had fought tooth and nail to get into the BSO. Some had nearly died for the privilege. And the salary and benefits meant they could never just walk away. Kid, I suggest you think this over, Tank said, his voice dropping low, his eyes glinting with menace. You're young, so I'll let it slide this time. Listen carefully. My condition, and the condition of everyone who comes in here after me. You will write down exactly what I tell you to. Otherwise, I promise, I will make your life in this bureau a living hell. Tank leaned close, his words a venomous whisper. He was done pretending. Today, he was going to show Leo, who ran this place, who the real boss of the BSO was. Leo's expression didn't change. He simply glanced at the pistol holstered on Tank's hip. All official BSO agents were permitted to carry a sidearm. It was a right granted by the Bureau. My dear patient, Leo said softly, It seems your condition is even more serious than I thought. Before Tank could react, Leo's hand shot out with blinding speed, snatching the pistol from its holster. Click! Bang! Arg! Just as he had done with Scar in a bar, Leo fired a decisive shot into Tank's thigh. The big man screamed and collapsed, clutching his bleeding leg. Hearing the gunshot, the other agents stormed into the office. By then, Leo had already tossed the gun to the floor nearby. Hands up! Don't move! The agents drew their weapons and aimed them at Leo, their faces grim. They didn't know exactly what had happened, but the scene told its own story. Leo had shot Tank. Do you know where you are? How dare you open fire in the BSO? Open fire? Leo asked, his face a mask of pure confusion. He remained calm, even with half a dozen guns pointed at him. Who fired a gun? Me? He took my gun and shot me. Tank yelled, clutching his thigh and glaring at Leo with pure hatred. With the victim pointing the finger, the conclusion seemed obvious. It was Leo. Sigh. You can't clear your name once you've been framed, Leo lamented, shaking his head. He looked at Tank. That was a clever move. Just because I told you to resign, you were willing to shoot yourself just to frame me. Just then, Alex rushed in, drawn by the commotion. He took in the scene, his brow furrowing. What's going on? Alex, you're here. Thank God, or I would have been wrongfully accused, Leo said, acting as if he'd just seen his savior. Here's what happened. I made my professional diagnosis of our colleague Tank here and determined that resigning was the best course of action to treat his depression. I told him to go see you to file the paperwork, and he just snapped. He threatened to make my life a living hell. Then he pulled out his gun. I thought he was going to kill me, but can you believe it? He shot himself in the leg and then accused me of doing it. The other agent's expressions shifted. That actually sounded exactly like something Tank would do, taking a bullet to the leg to avoid getting fired. If they were in his shoes, they might consider it. Alex frowned. He had a feeling there was more to the story. But when he knelt to examine Tank's wound, his expression hardened. Tank, he asked, how far away was Leo when he shot you? Less than 3 feet, I guess. Tank gasped, his teeth clenched against the pain. He had no idea why Alex was asking. Hearing this, Alex's face went cold. Less than 3 feet. That means there should be a discernible distance between the muzzle flash and the impact. Then why does your wound exhibit the characteristics of a contact shot, the kind that only occurs when the barrel is pressed directly against the skin? At those words, some of the more experienced agents in the room realized the gravity of the situation. They crowded around to look at the wound, their brows furrowing in unison. Alex is right. This kind of wound only happens with a contact shot. Exactly. And the entry point is incredibly precise. It maximizes pain while avoiding any major arteries or permanent damage. That's no accident. The shooter is a crack shot. It would be almost impossible to hit that exact spot without careful planning and calculation. Hearing the assessments, the agents slowly began to lower their weapons. The truth was becoming clear. Leo was innocent. He had been framed by Tank. Tank, I never thought you would sink this low, Alex said, looking at the man on the floor with profound disappointment. He had assumed they were just slacking off, phoning it in. But this was something else entirely. He scanned the faces of the other agents, a flicker of anger in his eyes. These were no longer the men he had started with, the colleagues who had once shared his ideals and convictions. The office was thick with tension. Seeing the tide of opinion turn against him, Tank began to panic, the pain in his leg forgotten. It was him, he shouted. He shot me. I'm not framing him. Right. You can check the gun for fingerprints. His prints will be all over. His voice trailed off as he caught the look in Leo's eyes, a look of pure, mocking amusement, as if he were watching a clown perform. Then he remembered. Before tossing the gun, Leo had paused for a fraction of a second. Had he wiped it clean? On top of that, there were no cameras in the office. No one could corroborate his story. Alex sighed softly, bent down, and picked up the pistol. He knelt beside Tank. Tank, do you realize what will happen to you if we test this gun and find no fingerprints from Leo, but only yours? Tank swallowed hard and glanced at Leo. The smug, casual smile was still plastered on Leo's face, his eyes full of anticipation, as if he couldn't wait for Tank to demand a fingerprint analysis. A wave of fear washed over Tank. He looked around the room and realized that in the entire bureau, not a single person would believe him. Not Alex, not even his own comrades. It wasn't that they didn't believe him. It was that they couldn't. In their eyes, Leo was just some pretty boy consultant. And who was Tank? A battle-hardened BSO agent. He might be a slacker now, but he was still competent, otherwise he never would have made it in. And now he was supposed to convince them that this pencil pusher had not only snatched his gun, but had also managed to shoot him in the safest possible spot on his leg, and that there might not even be any of Leo's prints on the weapon. The doubt on his fellow agents' faces was all the proof he needed. They had already decided he had staged the whole thing. "Tank, I'm going to ask you one more time," Alex said, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "Who fired the gun?" For the first time, the other agent saw it. This quiet, unassuming aide to the director could project an aura of immense pressure. Leo wasn't surprised. Anyone who spent that much time around Jensen was bound to pick up a thing or two. If it had been Jensen asking the question, Leo figured Tank would have broken down completely. But he was already close enough. Tank was trembling, his teeth clenched, his head bowed. His voice was choked with defeat. I did it myself." He surrendered. If this escalated and the gun came back clean, he couldn't handle the consequences. He couldn't afford to take that gamble. If he lost, it wouldn't just be him who suffered. His family would be dragged down with him. A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Alex sighed heavily. "A few of you get him to hospital. Any longer, and that leg will have permanent damage." As two agents moved to help Tank up, Leo spoke. "Wait." Everyone looked at him. "Tank," Leo said, a benign smile on his face. "We're colleagues. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. But don't you think you owe me an apology?" He looked magnanimous, the very picture of grace. Only he knew the bitter humiliation churning in Tank's gut. As the old saying went, the one who frames you knows better than anyone how innocent you are. But Leo felt no guilt. Not knocking was a minor offense, a matter of politeness that deserved a small lesson. But Tank had made the fatal mistake of threatening him. Scar and Wyatt Kane had done the same. He wondered if they were still alive. If not, the weeds on their graves were probably getting tall by now. Funny, they were both Marcus Lynn's men. All eyes turned to Tank. An apology? He was their unofficial leader. He had already disgraced himself by attempting to frame the new guy. If he bowed his head and apologized now, it would be a total surrender to Leo. Tank turned, his gaze fixed on Leo, a hint of fear in his eyes. He truly was afraid now. He couldn't figure this kid out. He was just too unpredictable. But at this point, nothing he said would change anyone's mind. Since he had already admitted defeat, what was one more apology? Tank was a brute, but he wasn't stupid. He knew that if he hadn't threatened Leo first, things wouldn't have ended this way. "I'm sorry, Dr. Evans," Tank said, ignoring the searing pain in his leg. He bowed deeply. "It was my mistake. I lost my head. When you're wrong, you admit it. When you get beat, you stand up straight." Even Leo was a little surprised. This version of Tank wasn't so bad. A glimmer of something bright passed through Alex's eyes. This was the Tank he remembered from the old days. "It's all right," Leo said generously. "I think there was just a misunderstanding between us. You should get to the hospital. We can talk again when you're feeling better." He waved them off, watching as Tank was carried out of the room. "All right," he announced to the remaining agents. "Let's continue with the consultations. No sense in wasting any more time. You can come in one by one. But this time, please remember to knock." The agents looked at him with a strange mix of awe and fear. How could he just go back to work after all that? Alex helped organize them, and soon, a semblance of order returned. The next few agents, whether out of guilt for Tank's actions or shame for their own part in it, were much more compliant. After a few minutes of conversation, each of them folded. "Dr. Evans, I admit it. There's nothing wrong with me. I promise. I'll work hard from now on, okay? I'll never be late or leave early again. I'll dedicate my last ounce of strength to the BSO." Leo heard so many variations of the same promise that his ears started to go numb. He listened to their pledges, shaking his head internally. He knew it was all talk. They might keep it up for a few days, but it wouldn't last. This was what Jensen meant by treating the symptoms, not the disease. Of course, a few hard-headed ones tried to stick to their story, just like Tank. But under the threat of Leo's resignation therapy, they all eventually caved. Phew. As the last agent left his office, Leo let out a slow breath, a faint smile on his lips. He had a good grasp of the situation now. It was time to bring out the main course. The incident with Tank was just an appetizer. Now, he was going to show these slacking bastards who was really in charge of the BSO today. Afternoon arrived. The agents had spent the entire day in consultations with Leo and hadn't gotten anything else done. By now, they were starving and getting ready to head out for a late lunch. "I can't believe this whole mess," one of the agents grumbled, walking to the main entrance. He pushed on the heavy glass door, ready to leave. It didn't budge. "Hey, who locked the door?" he shouted back into the room. His mood was already sour from the day's events, and now he had to deal with a prank. A few others came over and tried the door. It was solid. One of them examined the lock, and his eyes went wide. It's been locked from the outside. Who did this? I don't have time for games. Open the damn door. Yeah, we're trying to get lunch here. As they shouted, the sound of a single gunshot split the air and a bullet punched through a nearby window. Crack! Glass sprayed across the floor. The agent's training kicked in instantly. They dropped and scrambled for cover. Shit! A sniper. Henson, we've got a sniper. Call for backup. Backup? We're the damn backup, you idiot. The agent paused. Right? The BSO was law enforcement, with more firepower than the local PD. Before they could react further, the Bureau's PA system crackled to life. Testing, testing. Can you all hear me? In his office, Leo had locked the door and was speaking into the microphone, pinching his nose to disguise his voice. It was a simple trick Kane had taught him, and he'd mastered it quickly, though he couldn't quite manage a female voice. On his computer monitor, Alex had helpfully patched in the security camera feeds, giving Leo eyes on their every move. Ahem, allow me to introduce myself. My name is the Burrito King. The gentleman who just fired at you is named Pretty Boy Pistol. So, if any of you are injured by that bullet, don't come looking for me. It was his fault. The moment he said it, a stream of curses erupted in his earpiece from Kane. Leo ignored it. Gentlemen, you are now completely surrounded. You can't get out, and I strongly advise against any foolish moves. Our friend Pretty Boy Pistol is a master marksman, the kind who can pick you off in a heartbeat. The agents listened, their faces grim. They wanted to mock the ridiculous code names, but now was not the time. The agent named Henson, the first to recover from the initial shock, whispered to a colleague beside him. I'm going to make a break for the broadcast room. See who's in there. Cover me. Henson took one small step from behind cover. Bang! Another bullet struck the floor, inches from his foot. I told you not to make any foolish moves. Why don't you listen? Leo smiled. Kane couldn't see everything inside the building, but Leo could. He'd seen Henson's move on the monitor and given the order. The shot had its intended effect. The agents were frozen, knowing they were dealing with a true professional. Henson took a deep breath. Someone needed to negotiate. He slowly put down his weapon, raised his head toward the PA speaker, and called out, "What do you want?" Leo's eyebrow arched. So there were a few competent ones left after all. Hith, hith, hith. What do I want? I believe all of you received my threat letters this morning, yes? The agent's expressions changed. This mysterious Burrito King was the one who sent those things? But threat letters? Now that he mentioned it, they hadn't really thought of them that way. Who writes a threat letter like that? Don't worry, the voice continued. As long as you do exactly as I say, no one will get hurt. Henson's face was dark. So, what is it you want us to do? What I want is very simple. Leo paused for effect. I want all of you to resign your positions at the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight. I want the Ethelberg BSO permanently disbanded. That's absurd. Henson shot back without a second thought. Disband the BSO? Impossible. Besides, if they lost their jobs, how would they support themselves? A wave of angry shouts echoed Henson's sentiment. The other agents were furious, all yelling that they would never quit. Leo watched them on the monitor, then simply had Kane fire another warning shot. The room fell silent. I think you may have misunderstood something. This is a notification, not a negotiation. And today is just the beginning. The fact that I could deliver those letters to you means that I have all of your information. I can get to you anytime I want. And even if you're not afraid for yourselves, what about your families? As Leo's words hung in the air, the agents' faces began to change. This was a threat, a naked, brutal threat. He was using their families to force them out. A heavy silence fell over the room. Some faces were still contorted in rage. Others began to waver. Some clenched their jaws, their eyes full of unwilling fury. And some, I quit. A thin man slowly raised his hand, ignoring the shocked stares of those around him. My baby was just born, he stammered. Please don't hurt my wife and child. Whatever you say, I'll do it. I'll leave the BSO today and never come back. Leo watched him on the screen, then glanced at the personnel list on his desk, matching the face to a photo. Very good. Your name is Garrison, correct? Since you've complied with my request, I will not harm your wife and child. Anyone else? The agents were stunned. He knew Garrison's name. It was true. He had all their files. One by one, more hands went up. I'm out. Me too. The ones who quit now were, without exception, men with families to protect. Only a very few were acting out of pure fear for their own lives. From a corner of the room, Alex watched it all unfold, silently adjusting his glasses, a constant sigh in his heart. Perhaps this was for the best. With the ties of a family, this line of work was no longer suitable for them. Since they couldn't have both, it was better to leave now. But even with that thought, a bitter taste filled his mouth. As more men quit, Leo crossed their names off the list. I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't have a choice. The last man raised his hand, his face a mask of conflict. He never wanted to be forced out like this, a coward. But they had no choice. Stay, and their lives, and the lives of their families, were at risk. Quit, and they would be abandoning the difficult, hard-won careers they had once pursued with passion. In this impossible situation, Leo had forced them to choose. Very good. 70 agents and 33 have resigned. Leo nodded, a mocking tone in his disguised voice. So, that means the remaining 37 of you planned to fight me to the bitter end? He knew that many of those who remained were still holding out, banking on a lucky break. But clearing out this many in the first wave was a satisfying result. Seeing the others remain silent, Leo shook his head. It was time for the final act. To be honest, I'm not trying to target you personally. It's just that your bureau's very existence is an inconvenience. For the great families like us, even though you're no longer interfering in our disputes, as long as you exist, you remain a variable. Leo deliberately emphasized the words great families like us, as if dropping a hint. Today was just to gauge your attitude. If you had all quit peacefully, it would have saved me a lot of trouble. But it seems the BSO still has some stubborn old bones. No matter. We'll take our time. I'll give you all one more day to consider. If by tomorrow, any of you are still standing here, you had better be prepared for the consequences. So, I'll see you tomorrow. And remember, the man who fired the shots was Pretty Boy Pistol, not me, the Burrito King. With that, Leo shut off the microphone and spoke into his earpiece. Hit it. On the other end of the line, Kane didn't hesitate. He pressed the button. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions rocked the BSO. Smoke and flames erupted from the storage rooms, sending the agents diving for cover in a renewed panic. Damn it, how dare he? It's the storage rooms. The explosives were there. Quick, call the fire department. Put out, bastards. These syndicate families, they're completely out of control. Chaos reigned. They couldn't believe someone would actually set off bombs inside the BSO. At the same time, the terrifying reality of the situation began to sink in. Their enemy had been able to plant bombs inside the Bureau itself. How deep did their influence run? Had the syndicates already infiltrated the BSO? Click. Amid the confusion, Leo burst out of his office, his face a perfect picture of terror. Help! Somebody help me, he screamed, his voice cracking. Wah! I'm too young. I don't want to die. His performance was comically over the top, so exaggerated he was practically weeping. Wah! This place is too dangerous. I quit. I'm out of here. Henson's face went black. Dr. Evans, please calm down. The BSO will handle this, he yelled over the din. Handle it? The syndicates just blew you up. How are you going to handle anything? They just caught us off guard. We'll catch them eventually. You'll catch me? Leo thought with a cold laugh. In your dreams. I don't care. You're all being threatened. You can't protect me. Without another word, Leo bolted for the exit like a startled rabbit. Strangely, the main door, which had been locked solid just minutes before, swung open easily for him. No one gave it a second thought, assuming the Burrito King had unlocked it from the outside. As the agents battled the fire, Alex slipped into Leo's office to clean up any loose ends. To his surprise, there was nothing to find. Leo had sanitized everything, leaving not a single trace. His methods were unsettlingly professional. Leo ran out of the BSO, keeping the panicked look on his face until he was several blocks away, where he spotted Kane's familiar black sedan. Click! He jumped into the car and slammed the door. Why'd you park so far away? He complained. You know how tiring it is to run that far while trying to look terrified? Kane's mouth twitched. You didn't look tired to me. You looked like you were having the time of your life. There are no cameras here, Kane explained. They won't suspect you, but it's better to be careful. What's the next step? Next step? There is no next step for me, Leo said with a shrug. I quit, remember? What happens at the BSO has nothing to do with me anymore. Oh wait, quitting means they dock your pay. Let's call it clocking out. The rest is up to Alex. It's on him to see how many agents are left standing. 30 minutes later, inside the BSO, the remaining agents were covered in soot and grime. The air was thick with the smell of smoke, the office looking like a war zone. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. These syndicate scumbags dare to bomb the BSO. Don't they think we'll find them? This is unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened since the Bureau was founded. This is a declaration of war. A direct challenge to the BSO. The agents were a chorus of righteous fury, condemning the depraved actions of the syndicates. Only a few stood in silence, lost in thought. Alex, also covered in soot, sat heavily in a chair, catching his breath. He watched them vent, his gaze sweeping over the room. Finally, he roared, his voice cutting through the noise. "That's enough." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Alex stood, his face a mask of profound disappointment. "Aren't you embarrassed enough?" he demanded, his voice low and sharp. "They came into our house. They threatened our families. And all you can do is stand here and curse them? You don't even know who they are. You're not even trying to investigate. You're just spewing filth to vent your own pathetic frustration. Is that it? Is that what a BSO agent is supposed to be?" His questions landed like body blows, striking at the heart of every man in the room. The bureau was silent, save for the echo of Alex's voice. Of all the BSO branches in this country, which one gets shit on its own doorstep and doesn't even dare to wipe it off? Alex Young's face was flush with rage. "Answer me. Say something. You were all running your mouths just a minute ago, weren't you? Weren't you all cursing up a storm? What, did you all go mute?" Originally, his plan with Leo had just been to put on a show to reignite their fighting spirit. But now, Alex wasn't acting anymore. He was genuinely, deeply disappointed. He'd expected the BSO agents to be shaken, but he never imagined it would be this bad. 10 times worse than his bleakest prediction. 70 agents, one threat, and half you tuck tail and run. Alex let out a bitter laugh that was more of a gasp. "I don't blame you. Everyone has a family. It's understandable that you'd quit. But I want you to look me in the eye and ask yourselves, is it really just about protecting your families? Is there a single agent in the BSO, anyone who's been on the job for more than a year, who hasn't faced death, who hasn't had their family threatened? You didn't quit then. Why now?" He spun around, fixing his gaze on one of the 33 who had stepped back. "Frank, I remember you. 3 years ago, you stood alone at the gates of the Lynn Syndicate and forced Marcus Lynn to shut down every last one of his underground casinos. They had more than a dozen guns pointed at your head, and you didn't even flinch. Why did you quit now?" Frank, singled out by Alex, hung his head in shame, his face burning. Alex wasn't finished. He turned to another man, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Chun, I still remember what you told me 2 years ago when we were drinking. Do you remember what you said?" Tears welled in Alex's eyes, his voice thick with emotion. "You pointed at the sky and you swore that as long as you, Chun, were alive in Ethelberg City, you would fight the bastard from those crime families for one more day. Are you not still alive? So why did you quit?" He couldn't control it anymore. Tears streamed down his face. Henson, unable to watch any longer, spoke up. "Alex, we're not quitting. We're just bowing our heads for a moment. Don't worry. I can't speak for the others, but Henson, will see this through to the end. I'll find a man who did this, no matter what family he belongs to." His words, meant to be reassuring, only deepened Alex's despair. For a moment, "Bow our heads." Alex laughed, a hollow, mirthless sound. BSO agents, bowing their heads to the violent elements of a major syndicate? "Henson, do you hear how ridiculous you sound?" He looked up, scanning the faces of the others. He'd noticed a few of them nodding in agreement with Henson. The idea was to play nice, feign compliance, and then wait for an opportunity to strike. Alex slowly shook his head. "Have you all forgotten what our duty is? We are the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight. Our entire purpose is to oversee these families, especially the criminal ones. And now you're telling me that we should temporarily bow our heads to the very people we're supposed to be policing? Since when does the BSO have to resort to tactics like that to do its job?" His words echoed in the cavernous space. The agents present, some older than Alex, some younger, some as mentors, some as protégés, all stood with their heads bowed. They couldn't refute a single word. Because it was true. They had quit. The comfortable life had dulled their edges, and their original purpose had been ground down over time. After so long in a culture of quiet quitting, their mindsets had shifted. The passion, the fire was gone. Tap, tap, tap. Into the dead silence, the soft sound of footsteps descended from the upper floor. Alex, his eyes still red, looked up to see Director Jensen slowly walking down the stairs. It was the first time Jensen had ever come downstairs during work hours. "Director," Alex murmured, about to say something, but Jensen raised a hand, silencing him. Director Jensen." The BSO agents quickly greeted him. Jensen gave a slight nod, walked over to Alex, and gently patted his back. He knew Alex had been hit hard by this, but he also saw that the young man's perspective was skewed by his passion. The sharp edges of youth are inevitably worn smooth by the world, because the world you see when you're young is never the whole picture. Jensen surveyed the room. After a long moment, his voice, low and heavy, filled the space. "Do you know why I've never interfered with your work since the day I arrived?" The agents looked up, puzzled, and shook their heads. Because from the very first day I came here, the first time I laid eyes on all of you, I never once considered you BSO agents. You don't deserve the title. Jensen's tone was flat, but each word struck them like a hammer blow. A few agents bristled with indignation, but before they could speak, Jensen continued. I've served at the BSO headquarters in New York City. I've visited other field offices. I know what it takes to be called a BSO agent. A few sniper rounds? An explosion that didn't even cause a single casualty? And you think you're facing some unprecedented, lawless force? Then I suggest you get the hell out. The BSO is no place for you. He paused, a flicker of intensity in his otherwise stern expression. I don't care what you've been through before, and I don't care why you become like this. I only came down here to tell you one thing. Anyone still standing here at this time tomorrow had better be prepared to give me your heart, because I'm done being hands-off. I'm going to forge you into the sharpest damn sword in Ethelberg City. And for anyone who isn't here tomorrow, you can consider yourself resigned. You'll each get $50,000. Your time at the BSO is over. That's all I have to say. Think it over. Without another word, Jensen turned, led Alex upstairs, and left the remaining agents standing in stunned silence. Director, do you think they'll stay? Alex asked, his emotions now under control, a hint of worry in his voice. Despite his harsh words, he still hoped most of them would remain. I don't know, and it doesn't matter. Jensen sat back down in his chair and lit a cigarette. He took a long drag. Alex, the road we're about to walk is long and difficult, he said, his voice low. So promise me this. Even if you're the only one left at the end, you'll keep walking. Alex froze for a second, then bit his lip and nodded firmly, his eyes filled with unshakable resolve. Yes, sir. I'll keep walking, even if I'm the only one left. Meanwhile, at the Lynn Syndicate estate, Marcus Lynn paced back and forth in his study, brow furrowed, a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. It had been 2 days since he'd heard from Wyatt Kane. He had to assume something had gone wrong. The question was what happened, and who had him? Not the Fongs, he thought. They have no reason to go after Wyatt. I sent Wyatt to watch Ava Reed. If he's gone missing, the most likely person is Julian Reed. The conclusion struck him instantly. Wyatt must have slipped up, and Julian found him. With a mind like Julian's, he would have easily deduced that Wyatt was working for him. If that was the case, Wyatt was as good as dead, or worse. Damn it, Marcus cursed under his breath. With Wyatt gone, all his plans were in shambles. Worse, Julian had probably set his sights on him now. Making a move on Ava Reed had been crossing a line, and Julian would never let that slide. Since I'm already involved in their fight, I might as well go all in. A ruthless glint flashed in Marcus's eyes. He knew the risk was enormous, but he had no other choice. Rather than wait for Julian to deal with the Fongs and then come for him, he would strike first, joining forces with Victor Fong. With that thought, Marcus didn't hesitate. He dialed Victor Fang's number. Ring. Hello. Mr. Fong, Marcus said, a confident edge to his voice. The Lynn Syndicate is prepared to join you in your fight against the Reed family. What do you say? He was certain Victor wouldn't refuse. At a time like this, his offer was a lifeline. But to his utter shock, Victor Fong exploded. Lynn, do you take me for a fucking idiot? You think you can keep playing me for a fool? I know all about your little deal with Julian Reed, and you still have the balls to try and screw me over? You just wait. When the time comes, I'll wipe you out right along with the Reeds. Click. The line went dead. Marcus stood there completely baffled. What the hell just happened? Had Victor Fong lost his mind? He was rejecting a crucial alliance and even threatening him? And what was this about a deal with Julian Reed? What damn deal? Frowning, Marcus knew a wire had been crossed somewhere, causing Victor to completely misread the situation. But no matter how long he thought about it, he couldn't figure out where he had gone wrong. That idiot, Victor Fong, Marcus muttered. The situation was spiraling out of his control. He had to figure out what was going on, and fast. And just how badly had that old fool misunderstood him. He couldn't possibly think he teamed up with Julian, could he? The thought surfaced, and Marcus gave a self-deprecating chuckle. He was being paranoid. Everyone in Ethelberg knows Julian and I are at each other's throats. No matter how much Victor has misunderstood, he couldn't possibly be so far off as to think I'd join forces with the Reeds, right? Reassured, he took a breath. There was still time to salvage this. He hurried out of the room. He had to change his plans. At the Reed estate, Leo was on his phone, texting back Dylan, who was planning to bring Chloe over for a free meal the next day. He figured things were going well between them, and Dylan was probably looking for some women support. He finished his message, pocketed his phone, and turned to Reggie with a grave expression. I'm asking you one more time. Are you sure you're not coming back? Meow. Nope. You're absolutely staying here. Meow. Yep. The little white cat was lounging comfortably in Ava's arms. He'd been having the time of his life at the Reed estate these past few days. Go back to Leo's dump? Not a chance. His quality of life was on an upward trajectory, only. Ava blinked, watching the exchange between man and cat with curiosity. Were they actually communicating? What's Reggie saying? She asked. He says he really misses home. Meow. I do not. Leo's eye twitched. He picked Reggie up by the scruff of his neck, turned away from Ava, and whispered in a corner. You ungrateful little fur ball. Have you forgotten who took pity on you and brought you home? Meow. Did that happen? Damn you. Do you want me to smack that furry little head of yours? Leo was in disbelief. The cat's ingratitude knew no bounds. He placed his hand on Reggie's back and rubbed his fur the wrong way. The ultimate feline insult. Reggie instantly bristled. Mio, what do you think you're doing? Stop messing around and come home with me. I have a use for you. Ever since Reggie had discovered Wyatt Kane, Leo had an idea brewing, to train the cat as a feline spy. Any intelligence gathering could be outsourced to the little fluffball. After all, who would ever suspect a cat was eavesdropping? But as soon as Reggie heard he was being put to work, he let out a pathetic cry, squirmed out of Leo's grasp, and leaped back into Ava's arms. Meow, meow, meow. You'd even exploit a cat. Meow, meow. You're not human. Meow, you have no heart. Reggie cried in Ava's embrace, somehow managing to squeeze out a few tears. Ava's heart melted, and she began stroking the little cat comfortingly. Leo stared dumbfounded. Seriously, Reggie? With acting skills like that, why were you a stray? You must have won an Oscar in a past life. I couldn't squeeze out a tear at the BSO if my life depended on it. And you turn on the waterworks just like that? Reggie obviously doesn't want to go back. Ava said, glaring at Leo as she petted the cat. What's wrong with letting him stay and play for a few more days? Meow. Yeah, what she said. Leo's eye twitched again as he shot a death glare at Reggie. Fine. You just wait, you stupid cat. You're going on my list. Click. The door to the study opened, and Julian emerged, looking utterly exhausted with 2 dark circles under his eyes. Brother, you're finally out. Ava exclaimed. Leo's head tilted. Finally out. Your brother. Don't tell me he's been in there since yesterday. Oh yeah, he does that all the time. I'm used to it. How is that something you get used to? Leo looked at Julian with newfound respect. Dude, you have enhanced physiology too? Don't you need to use the bathroom? A moment later, Julian answered his question. He completely ignored Ava, chugged a glass of water, and made a beeline for the restroom. After a long while, he re-emerged, looking considerably more relaxed. He immediately looked at Leo. Kane told me there's been a development at the BSO. What's the situation? Leo shook his head. He wasn't sure either, but from what he'd seen today, he wasn't optimistic. Julian didn't press. He'd never been counting on the BSO anyway. Their help would be a bonus, but its absence wouldn't change his plans. His expression turned serious. Ava, get Kane and the others. I have something to say. Okay, right away. Ava nodded, carrying Reggie as she went to gather everyone. Soon, only Leo and Julian were left in the room. So, Leo began curious. After all that time, what's the plan? I have one, Julian said, nodding grimly. We've been overlooking something important. Since that Director Jensen could operate in Ethelberg for so long without our knowledge, how many other unknown players are lurking in the shadows? The Phone Alliance's recent moves have been strange. I suspect someone is working with them behind the scenes. If that's the case, we have to strike first before this whole thing spins out of our control. Strike? Already? Leo frowned. This was happening much faster than he'd anticipated. Yes, we can't wait any longer. Tell me everything about the situation at the BSO, Julian said. He needed to know where the Bureau stood before making his final decision. Leo quickly recounted the day's events at the BSO headquarters. So that's the situation. As for how many agents will be left, we'll have to wait and see tomorrow. Julian listened in silence. When Leo finished, he said, Can you contact Director Jensen right now? I can. Call him. I'll talk to him. Julian couldn't wait until tomorrow. He needed to speak with Jensen now. Leo didn't ask questions. He knew Julian wouldn't be this rushed unless the situation was dire. He quickly dialed Jensen's number and handed the phone to Julian. Ring. Hello. It's Julian Reed. Julian stated his identity bluntly. He was all about efficiency right now. Jensen was clearly surprised to hear from the current head of the Reed family, but he recovered quickly. What is it? He asked, his voice low. You want to cooperate with the Reed family, correct? That has yet to be determined. Then let's determine it now. Julian cut him off. Are we cooperating or not? Standing nearby, Leo's enhanced hearing picked up every word. He gave Julian a mental thumbs up. That's Julian for you. He would never dare talk to Jensen like that. On the other end of the line, Jensen was silent for a moment before saying a single word, cooperating. A faint smile touched Julian's lips. Good. Since we're cooperating, I need you to confirm something for me. What is it? The Foam Alliance, specifically Victor Foam. Has he been in contact with anyone unusual recently? Why do you ask? Don't worry about why. Just tell me. Jensen was clearly irritated by Julian's tone, but he replied, hold on. Leo and Julian heard some rustling on the other end. Just then, Kane and Ava returned with the rest of the Reed family's core members. Seeing the intense expressions on Leo and Julian's faces, they stayed quiet, waiting by the side. A few moments later, Jensen's voice came back, heavy with concern. You were right. A few days ago, there was a break-in at the Fong estate. Several guards were killed. The news was suppressed. If I hadn't specifically looked into it, even I wouldn't have known. Jensen's voice was tinged with anger. For something like this to happen in Ethelberg City without his knowledge meant that whoever suppressed the news had some serious influence. Leo and Julian exchanged a look. A cold dread settled in their stomachs. Who was it? Can you find out? Julian asked. My people are on it, but they must be big players. It wouldn't take this long otherwise. Jensen now understood the gravity of the situation. This was no longer just a feud between the Reeds and the Fongs. Unseen forces were getting involved. Soon, Jensen received an update. We found them. Son of a bitch. No wonder the story was buried. It was someone from the Vance Dominion in New York. The man who broke into the Fong estate was Donovan Vance, the family's second son. Julian's brow furrowed. This was far worse than he'd imagined. The Vance Dominion? The sovereign syndicate from NYC. That's them. Those bastards are stretching their claws all the way to Ethelberg. From Jensen's tone, it was clear he had his own history with the Vance Cess. Director Jensen, will the Vance Dominion help the Fongs? No, they won't. To them, your fight with the Fongs is just a petty squabble, not even worth their notice, Jensen said, then paused. My guess is this is Donovan Vance acting on his own. So we're only dealing with Donovan Vance? No, he won't get his hands dirty himself, but there's a woman with him you need to be careful of. Who? Crimson Rose. She's currently ranked 15th on the Hero Index. If Donovan Vance is truly helping the Fongs, she will be your greatest threat. 15th on the Hero Index. Julian knew exactly what that meant. He clenched his fists, a wave of relief washing over him. If he hadn't sensed that something was wrong, if Leo hadn't had his connection to the BSO, the Reed family would have been caught completely off guard, pushed into an impossible corner. At the same time, he cursed his own carelessness. He had underestimated the Fongs and overestimated himself. But it wasn't too late. Now that he knew, he could still act. Director Jensen, the situation is critical. I need to ask for your help. A favor that will also help the BSO. Go on. Julian took a deep breath. In your capacity as the BSO branch director, I need you to personally intervene. I need you to grant the Reed family access to the Crucible. A short distance away, Kane's pupils constricted at the words, the Crucible. He clenched his jaw. Has it really come to this? Kane, what's the Crucible? Ava asked, confused by the heavy atmosphere that had fallen over the room. Kane frowned, his voice low. War between the great families is a complex game. There are many ways to win. You can use strategy, slowly absorb their assets, cripple their finances, and win with minimal losses. You can assassinate key figures. Intelligence, economic sanctions, psychological warfare, all are options. But the Crucible is different. It's a ruined city on a deserted island in the East Sea. It exists for one purpose: to be the ultimate battleground for conflicts between apex-level families and above. Once two families enter, only one comes out alive. The losing side is buried there, fighting to the very last man. And there's only one way to settle the score: a direct, brutal contest of strength. Hearing this, Ava's face filled with worry. Her brother was going to place like that? She clutched Reggie, looking at the grim faces of the Reed family members around her. Is everyone going? She asked, a tremor of fear in her voice. She was afraid of losing these familiar faces, of them being left behind in that ruined city forever. Most of all, she was terrified that her brother would never come back. Leo saw the look on Ava's face. He stepped forward and gently wrapped his arms around her, patting her back. It's okay, he soothed. It's going to be okay. Ava's nose tingled, and she leaned against his shoulder, managing a soft, Not far away, Julian was still waiting for Director Jensen's answer. Julian, do you have any idea what activating the Crucible means? I do. Given the circumstances, it's the best option. but that battleground is reserved for apex families. You're not. Director, I'm sure a rule like that isn't a problem for you, is it? Jensen was silent for a long time. Throughout their conversation, Julian had remained unervingly calm, even managing to seize control of the dialogue and put Jensen on the back foot. After a moment, Jensen let out a heavy sigh. When? As soon as possible. Preferably tomorrow. We need to hit the phones before they can prepare. You know that once you're in the crucible, you're on your own. The BSO can't help you on that battlefield. I know. The Reed family is grateful for the help you've already given. All right. Jensen was about to hang up, but he paused. Julian Reed, you're quite a character. I won't forget you. Don't die too soon. There are things I'd like to discuss with you in person. A small smile played on Julian's lips. Don't worry, Director. We'll have plenty of time to talk later. Heh. Jensen chuckled softly and hung up, presumably to make the arrangements. Julian handed the phone back to Leo, then looked at him seriously. Leo, you're not coming with us this time. Stay in Ethelberg and look after Ava. Ava stood beside them, head down, her heart heavy. She wanted to go with Julian to live or die with her family. But she couldn't. She knew that in a situation like this, she would only be a liability. Leo took the phone and nodded, saying nothing. Julian turned to his people, his voice ringing with authority. You all heard most of that. The Reed family is activating the crucible. We're going to meet the phone alliance there and fight until only one family is left standing. I have never forced any of you to do anything. If you don't want to go, take one step forward now. The Reed family members stood their ground, their faces grim, but not a single person moved. Then, someone broke the tension with a laugh. Come on, Mr. Reed, we don't need the speech. We've been through it all together. When has a Reed ever backed down? Yeah, just tell us what you need us to do. We trust you. Enough with the sentimental stuff. It's not like we're not coming back. Just give the order, Mr. Reed. A smile spread across Julian's face. This unwavering loyalty was why he fought to protect them. He dropped the formality. Logistics, you're working overnight. Get all the supplies ready. Make sure we have enough food and water to last on the island. Everyone else, prep your gear. Guns, ammo, whatever you're most comfortable with. We're going to hit them hard. Finalize the roster of who's going. And whether we come back or not, make sure our families are taken care of. Julian continued issuing orders, a whirlwind of command. Leo and Ava stood to the side, feeling like outsiders. Leo squeezed Ava's hand, knowing how helpless she must feel, but there was nothing he could do. This was a war between families. Even with his system, he couldn't change the outcome alone. After a long while, Julian finally finished. He let out a deep breath and collapsed onto the sofa, utterly spent. He hadn't slept all night, and the sudden rush of events had drained him completely. Brother. Ava rushed to his side, her face full of concern, helping him sit up straight. Julian waved her off, signaling that he was fine. Don't worry, Julian. Leo walked up to him, his expression serious. If you're short on people, I can go. Julian managed a weak smile. No, but thank you for the offer. If the Reed family falls, one more person won't make a difference. I just need you to do one thing for me. Take care of Ava. Leo's eye twitched. You're misunderstanding me, dude. He wanted to say, I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself. If your family gets wiped out, I die too. So please, stop looking like you're heading to your own funeral. Get your head in the game, Julian. Leo's face darkened. He had to get Jensen to keep an eye on things. He just learned that the BSO could monitor the battle in real time. If Julian was really on the verge of losing, Leo would have to go in no matter what. It might not change anything, but he had to at least fight for his own life. All right, you two go on. I need to sleep. I'm running on empty, Julian said, standing up and waving a hand dismissively. He walked back to his room, collapsed onto the bed, and was asleep almost instantly. He had to recover. He was the core of the family. He couldn't afford to fall. Ava watched her brothers retreating back, her eyes filled with worry. Leo, do you think he'll win? Leo gently took her hand. He'll win, he said with conviction. He paused, then added, we'll all win. If Julian lost, Leo would cease to exist. Ava would be left all alone in the world. If that happened, she would break. Leo would never let that happen. Come on, Julian. You've got to pull through, he thought, silently cheering him on. If his new brother-in-law in spirit could handle this, Leo wouldn't have to risk his own neck. Ava bit her lower lip. Suddenly, she let go of Leo's hand and looked him in the eye. Leo, I'm going to help. I can't go to the battlefield with them, but I can at least help with logistics tonight. She refused to just stand by and watch. Even if her contribution was small, she wanted to do everything in her power to help her family. Leo smiled, stroking her hair. Then, I'll help with you. Okay, she nodded. And so, the two of them joined the whirlwind of preparations. Leo became a glorified deliverman, hauling boxes, while Ava took charge of inventory. As the night wore on, they fell into a rhythm, occasionally bickering. Leo, this is the food pile. Why are you bringing the C4 over here? Ava demanded, pointing at him with her pen. Hey, it wasn't labeled. How was I supposed to know it was C4? If it's not labeled, why didn't you open it to check? Now move it. All right, I'm moving it. Leo grumbled. The other Reed members watched them, smiling but didn't intervene. A few even managed to free a hand to snap a picture on their phones. And so, the preparations for war continued, a whirlwind of organized chaos under the Reed family's roof. The next morning, the sun rose. Leo and Ava hadn't slept a wink, working through the night on logistics. Towards the end, Ava was visibly exhausted, but she gritted her teeth and stubbornly pushed through. Phew! They both let out a long breath and collapsed onto the sofa. Fortunately, the Reed family always kept a substantial reserve of supplies, allowing them to prepare for an emergency like this in a single night. Click! Julian emerged from his room, a night's sleep having restored much of his energy. Whoa, what happened to you two? You look like you've been drained of your life force. Julian looked at the pair on the sofa, confused. Before they could answer, Kane walked in. Julian, everything's ready. He led Julian outside. The estate's courtyard was now filled with several large crates packed with food, bullets, explosives, and an assortment of firearms, all organized in one night. Julian opened a few crates at random, inspected the contents, and nodded. Now we just wait for the BSO. At the same time, outside the Fong Alliance estate, Alex Young stood alone, carrying a briefcase, his face in a motionless mask as he addressed the Fong family guards. Hello, I need to see your family head. Kid, you think our head is someone you can just see whenever you want? Alex didn't waste words. He pulled out his badge and credentials, revealing his identity. The BSO. The guard clearly knew what the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight represented. This was not someone he could turn away. One moment, please. I'll make a call. He quickly dialed a number and reported that someone from the BSO was here. A moment later, he hung up and gestured respectfully for Alex to enter. Please come in. The head is waiting for you in the reception hall. Alex walked past him without a second glance, striding purposefully towards the reception hall. He'd been here before and knew the layout of the estate. Stepping inside, he saw Victor Fong seated in the main chair, surrounded by several core members of the Fong Alliance. They were clearly taking his visit very seriously. Head Fong, my name is Alex Young. I'm a Grade 2 inspector with the Ethelberg City BSO. Alex produced a badge from his coat, one signifying his rank. Official BSO members were divided into 3 ranks. Grade 3, Agent. Grade 2, Inspector. Grade 1, Director. All ranks within a branch were under the jurisdiction of the local branch director. It was also worth noting that unlike other branches, the Ethelberg BSO had no deputy director, only the director himself. A Grade 2 Inspector? Victor Fong frowned upon seeing the badge. He had a bad feeling about this. Minor issues didn't typically require an inspector. Had one of his men screwed up again? Inspector Young, to what do we owe the pleasure of your visit today? Victor asked, probing. Click. Alex opened his briefcase. Head Fong, I'm here today to inform you of something. He pulled out a document he had drafted overnight. Due to the escalating conflict between the Fong Alliance and the Reed family, and the refusal of both parties to accept BSO-mediated reconciliation, the situation has now reached an irreparable state. Alex began rattling off a string of official-sounding jargon. Victor Feng's expression grew darker with every word. Therefore, the Ethelberg City BSO has, after careful consideration, decided to approve the application submitted by the acting head of the Reed family, Julian Reed. This afternoon, the crucible will be opened for both families. Absurd. Victor Fong shot to his feet, his eyes wide. He forgot all about Alex's rank. He pointed a trembling finger at him. Your BSO. You teamed up with the Reeds? He saw it instantly. The BSO and the Reeds were in this together. Otherwise, the timeline for activating the crucible wouldn't be so tight, leaving them no time to prepare. And what was this crap about refusing mediation? When the hell did the BSO ever offer to mediate? Victor's face was beet red with fury. He couldn't believe the Reeds had managed to get the BSO on their side. And he couldn't believe Julian was this ruthless, activating the crucible, a battleground where one family had to be completely annihilated for it to end. The other Fong members looked just as grim. They had been completely blindsided. Facing Victor's accusation, Alex calmly put the document away. Head Fong, you seem to be mistaken. The BSO is an independent entity and never allies with any family. All procedures are legal and compliant. If you have an issue, you're free to file a complaint with the BSO General Directorate in New York. Legal and compliant, my ass. Victor screamed internally. Neither of us are even apex families. And you're opening the crucible? You call that compliant? For the first time, he realized just how shameless the BSO could be. Inspector Young, even so, isn't this afternoon a bit rushed? Victor said through clenched teeth. He had to try and salvage the situation to gain any advantage he could. Giving the Phone Alliance only a few hours to prepare seems unreasonable. But Alex was unmoved. As I said, all arrangements were made according to standard procedure. They cannot be changed. If you have any objections, file a complaint with the General Directorate in New York. Victor's fist tightened. Complain? You think you've given me time to complain? I couldn't even get to New York by this afternoon. Oh, and one more thing. Head phone, Alex added. This afternoon, we will arrange for your family to travel by boat and land on the southern side of the island. The Reed family will land on the northern side. No combat is permitted until both parties have fully disembarked. Similarly, once the battle has commenced, no outside parties may enter the field. He finished with a final, cutting remark. You have now been fully briefed on all matters concerning the Crucible. If the Phone Alliance fails to appear this afternoon, you will be considered to have forfeited. As per the rules, all phone assets and resources will be transferred to the Reed family. With that, he turned and walked away, ignoring the murderous glares of the Phone family members. Just then, a furious roar echoed through the hall. This is the Phone estate. You don't get to just walk away. To everyone's shock, a figure rushed out, pulling a pistol and aiming it directly at Alex. It was Victor Feng's son, Spencer. He had been sitting in a corner the entire time, listening to the conversation with growing rage. Now, seeing Alex about to leave while every other phone member just stood there, paralyzed, was more than he could bear. They were being walked all over, and they were just taking it? Not him. Fine, you're all cowards? I'll do it. Spencer, stop. The other members cried out in alarm. This was a BSO inspector. If that gun went off, the consequences would be unimaginable. Alex could die, but not here, not so brazenly at their hands. But it was too late. Spencer, blinded by rage, slowly squeezed the trigger. A gunshot rang out. Bang! Arg! A gunshot echoed, but the person who fell screaming was not Alex Young. The Phone family members stared, eyes wide. Just before Spencer had pulled the trigger, someone else had fired first, faster. Their gazes shot towards the source of the sound. Not to a single person, but a group. And Henson. Alex's eyes widened in disbelief. He scanned the crowd, his voice trembling as he counted under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. He counted, his heart pounding with a rising tide of emotion. 47. 47 agents from the Ethelberg City BSO were standing there, arrayed before him. 10 more than the 37 who had stayed yesterday. They had come back. Even Tank was there, a bandage wrapped around his leg, grinning at Alex through the pain. Henson, a cigarette dangling from his lips, kept his gun trained on the space behind Alex, the barrel still warm. What's wrong, Alex? He drawled. Don't recognize us anymore? You've got some nerve, kid, coming to the Phone estate all by yourself. Did you really think you were the only one left in the BSO? Hearing those words, Alex's eyes turned red. He bit his lip hard, fighting to suppress the overwhelming emotions. He had truly believed that after yesterday's breakdown, there wouldn't be many left. But now, 47 of his colleagues stood before him, proving he wasn't alone. In that moment, Alex wanted nothing more than to roar, to let it all out. Unlike Alex, the Phone family members looked horrified. The situation had just escalated far beyond their control. The entire BSO force had shown up, and, at the worst possible moment, Tank limped over to Alex and clapped him on the shoulder. Then his face hardened as he looked at the screaming Spencer on the floor. He turned to Victor Phone. Headphone, this just got serious. A blatant attack on a BSO agent. Do you know what that means? The Phone members tensed, waiting for Victor's command. If he handled this wrong, they wouldn't just be fighting the Reeds. They'd be getting arrested today. But Victor's next words shocked everyone, including Tank. His face a dark mask. Victor spoke in a flat, cold tone. I had no intention of offending the BSO. Spencer Phone is no longer a member of this family. His actions have nothing to do with the Phone Alliance. Alex's fists clenched. He couldn't believe how ruthless, how decisive Victor was. Cutting his losses. And what he cut was his own son. Spencer, hearing those words, ignored the searing pain in his leg and looked up at his father in disbelief. He prayed he'd misheard, that it was a trick of his ears. But when his eyes met Victor's icy gaze, he knew it was real. Father, WHY. Don't call me that. We have no relationship. Victor looked at Spencer as if he were a complete stranger. Henson stubbed out his cigarette and stepped forward. Headphone. Aren't you afraid a move like this will dishearten your men? The other phone members flinched. He's right. He'd sacrifice his own son. What about us? I know, Victor said, his voice ringing out, that you have all seen what Spencer has done over the years. You tolerated him, indulged him, only because he was my son. I have always been aware of this. But today, I say that your tolerance for my worthless son ends now. With that, to everyone's astonishment, Victor Phone bowed deeply to the men around him. Headphone, you shouldn't. Please don't. We understand. Headphone. There's no need for this. His men rushed to dissuade him. Alex and the other BSO agents could only sigh. Victor Phone was a master manipulator. With that one bow, he had silenced all dissent and calmed their anxious hearts. Henson waited impassively for the performance to end before speaking. In that case, Headphone, we'll be taking Spencer Phone with us. Of course, do as you see fit. Punish him or kill him, according to BSO regulations. Victor paused, then added, don't worry about my feelings. As I said, he has no connection to me or to the Phone Alliance. Henson gave Victor a long, hard look, then gestured for a few agents to come forward and drag Spencer away. No, I'm not going. Father, save me. I'll die. Father, father. As Spencer screamed, Victor didn't so much as twitch an eyebrow, watching silently as his son was taken. As Henson passed Alex, he murmured, looks like this is all we can do for today. We'll find another chance to get even for you. Alex touched, nodded slightly. It's okay, Henson. Just having you all here is enough. Let's move out. Henson commanded. With a final wave, the BSO agents departed, a formidable column of authority. No one dared to stop them. After they left, Victor stared at the bloodstain on the floor where his son had been. Everyone, he said flatly, drop whatever you are doing. Go help the logistics team prepare our supplies. The Reeds and the BSO planned this ambush, so the rules will undoubtedly be slanted in their favor. Recall all our external members. Ensure we have enough firearms and ammunition. I want to see those supplies ready before this afternoon. Is that clear? Crystal clear. The phone members roared in unison, then scrambled to prepare. They were out of time. Alone, Victor returned to his study. The dam of his composure finally broke. He seized a teacup from his desk and hurled it against the wall. It wasn't enough. He smashed several more. Only he knew the bitter taste in his mouth from the moment he had disowned his son. He braced himself on the table, breathing heavily. After a long moment, he took out his phone and dialed a number. Ring. Mr. Vance, we have an emergency. Victor quickly explained the situation, the alliance between the Reeds and the BSO, and the activation of the Crucible. On the other end, Donovan Vance fell silent. Victor didn't dare rush him. After what felt like an eternity, he heard Donovan's soft laugh. Julian Reed. He's even more impressive than I thought. Don't worry, Headphone. I've already sent Crimson Rose and my personal unit. They'll intervene when the time is right. Victor's heart steadied. But Miss Rose and your unit aren't part of the Phone Alliance. Will the BSO let them enter the field? Donovan scoffed. Headphone, you should know this by now. At a certain level, rules become flexible. Just as the BSO can team up with the Reeds to blindside you, I can use my authority to get a few people onto that island without the BSO daring to say a word. Donovan's tone suddenly shifted, becoming cold and menacing. Each word was a shard of ice in Victor's ear. All you have to do is make sure not a single member of the Reed family is left alive. As afternoon approached, Ethelberg City's port was bustling. Brother, Ava tugged at the corner of Julian's shirt, unwilling to let go. Around them, Reed family members were loading supplies onto a ship chartered by the BSO. They were about to set sail into the East Sea, to enter the Crucible from the north. Because BSO agents were present, Leo remained out of sight, sitting in a black sedan nearby, playing on his phone while he waited for Ava to say her goodbyes. As for his job, Leo had requested an extended leave of absence. The official reason was that he was traumatized by recent events and wouldn't return until the BSO had apprehended the Burrito King. Henson had even called to check on him, telling him to rest well, which made Leo think the BSO wasn't so bad after all. Seeing Ava's downcast face, Julian smiled gently and ruffled her hair. Don't worry, Ava. We'll win. Yeah, young miss, don't act like we're not coming back. One of the men joked as he walked by with a crate. Ava shot him a small glare before turning back to Julian. Brother, how long will you be gone? The island isn't far. It's about a day and a night's sail. If things go smoothly, we'll be back within 2 weeks. And if they don't go smoothly? If they don't? Julian shrugged with a carefree smile. Then you'll just have to wait a few more days. Ava frowned and suddenly reached in her pocket, pulling out a small, woven red charm. She pressed it into Julian's hand. What's this? A good luck charm. I just bought it on the way here. To keep you safe. No way. Those things are bad luck. Give it to Leo. In every movie he'd ever seen, the guy with the good luck charm always got shot. Julian refused, then added, or give it to Kane. He's been really stressed lately, for some reason. Ava's face fell. She had spent a long time picking that charm out, especially for him. Just then, Kane strolled over, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Hey, perfect timing. Julian's eyes lit up. He took the charm from Ava and shoved it into Kane's hand. Kane looked at it, confused. What the hell is this? He asked, holding it up. A good luck charm. Why are you giving it to me? Who bought this jinx thing? Ava did, Julian said with a grin. Kane broke into a cold sweat. He looked at Ava and felt a murderous aura emanating from her calm gaze. Julian, you bastard. You set me up. I was just wondering who could be so thoughtful as to get a good luck charm. Kane stammered, forcing a laugh. Turns out it was our beautiful young Miss Ava. Ha ha ha. He clutched the charm tightly and began backing away from the siblings. I just remember my car might be parked crooked. I should go check on it. With that, he turned and fled. Julian's eye twitched. What car? You don't even have one parked here. Leo is sitting in your car right now. Oomph. Ava huffed, annoyed that her thoughtful gesture had been so thoroughly rejected. She had been so worried about them, but were they even worth worrying about? Julian, Kane, all of them, there wasn't a shred of tension on their faces. They were all laughing and joking as if they were heading out on a cruise. Leader Reed, you can depart now, a BSO agent said, approaching Julian. Since Julian wasn't the official head of the family, outsiders referred to him as Mr. Reed or Leader Reed. Julian nodded. They were scheduled to leave before the Fongs to get a head start and secure a better position on the island, a small advantage granted by Director Jensen. As the others boarded, Julian stayed behind for a final word with Ava. He glanced at her, then at the black sedan where Leo was sitting. A faint smile crossed his face. He leaned in and whispered in her ear, Ava, with us gone, the family is vulnerable here. You should stay with Leo for a while. Ava's eyes went wide with disbelief. I'm your sister, and you're telling me to go live at another guy's house? Isn't that moving in together? Julian sighed, his expression turning somber. Ava, I have no choice. With both the Fongs and us gone to the island, the only threat left in the city is the Lin Syndicate. I'm worried that bastard Marcus Lin will take this opportunity to come after you. He trailed off, adding, it's my fault. If I were more capable, I wouldn't have to put you in this position. He looked crestfallen, as if blaming himself for not being strong enough to leave guards behind for her. Brother, Ava bit her lip, her face flushing crimson. I didn't say I wouldn't go. So you agree? Ava's blush deepened, spreading to the tips of her ears. Her voice became a whisper. Since you put it that way, I guess I have no choice. But don't get the wrong idea. I'm only doing this so that bastard Marcus Lin can't use me to threaten you. I am absolutely not doing this because of that idiot Leo. Right, of course. Julian nodded sagely. I get it. This is a huge inconvenience for you. The second I get back, I'll bring you home. I won't let you stay at Leo's place a single day longer than necessary. Without waiting for a reply, Julian turned and left. The BSO was hurrying him along. Ava, be good and wait for me to come back, he called out, waving from the ship as it pulled away from the port. The other Reed members waved too, smiling as they shouted their goodbyes. Don't worry, young miss, we'll be back for sure. Don't miss us too much, young miss. Young miss, I left my phone on the living room table. It's full of pictures of you and Leo. They're all yours. Whoa, dude, you're not going to share something that big with the rest of us. Yeah, that's our entire fortune you're talking about. Ava, who had been on the verge of tears, couldn't help but smile as she watched them start roughhousing on the deck. Julian's gaze was intense. He looked past the tinted windows of the black sedan, as if he could see Leo inside, waving them off. Then he cast one last, reluctant look at Ava. Ava, he thought, if things don't go smoothly, I might not come back. Leo is someone you can trust, even if he is a bit of an idiot sometimes. But if we really don't make it back, let him walk the rest of the way with you. Leo sat in the car, idly playing Candy Crush. Reggie, the white cat, was snoozing beside him. In the front seats were Ava's two bodyguards, Rook and Knight, who were also staying behind. Click. Ava, her face beat red after saying her goodbyes, opened the car door and slid inside. Finished saying goodbye. Huh. Leo turned and saw Ava sitting stiffly in her seat, head down, uncharacteristically quiet. At first, he thought she was just sad, but when he leaned in for a closer look, he saw her biting her lip, a look of pure mortification on her face. She was staring at the floor, refusing to meet his eyes. Leo? Why are you blushing like a teapot? What happened during your farewells to make you so flustered? Want to play Candy Crush? Unsure what else to do, Leo offered her his phone as a tentative olive branch. Ava glanced at it, and her mood soured instantly. She stomped on his foot. Is this really the time for Candy Crush? Well, I can't just sit here and do nothing. You. Ava pointed at him, at a complete loss for words. In her head, she was cursing her brother. That idiot. If he wanted me to stay with Leo, he should have told Leo, not me. Now what do? How am I supposed to tell Leo I'm moving in with him? Suddenly, she saw Reggie sleeping beside her and had an idea. Didn't you want to take Reggie home with you? She asked quickly. Yeah, but you wouldn't let me, Leo said, confused. Well, I think it's fine for Reggie to go home, but I have to come too, to make sure you don't bully him. Leo? Rook and Knight. Leo's eyes went wide with disbelief. Do you hear yourself right now? You? Move into my place? Julian would kill me. In the front, Rook and Knight exchanged a look and gave Ava a covert thumbs up. That's our young miss. Taking the initiative. She's already proposing to move in together. No, I don't think that a good idea, Leo said, waving his hands frantically. I don't care what you think. Ava huffed. It's settled. We're moving my stuff to your place today. Seriously, it's not a good idea. Before Leo could finish, Ava planted her foot on top of his and stared at him with a menacing glare. What were you saying? I was saying, do you still want to play Candy Crush? No. Oh. Leo sheepishly retracted his phone. Fine, whatever. Let her move in. What was the worst that could happen? He had a pretty good idea this was Julian's doing anyway. There was no way a girl who blushed this easily would suggest something like this on her own. Still, Julian must not be confident he's coming back. Don't screw this up, Julian. Leo prayed silently. Soon, they were back at the Reed estate, frantically packing. Seriously, my apartment is tiny. All this stuff won't fit. Leo groaned, watching Ava stuff bag after bag into the car. At this rate, the square footage of his place was about to reach maximum capacity. Ava scratched her head, looking troubled. She wanted to bring it all. Just bring the essentials for now. The rest can stay here. It's not like it's far away. You can always come back for it later, Leo suggested. And so, Ava began the painful process of decluttering. Okay, not this one. This one, yes. Why are you bringing that giant yellow mouse thing? This is the Pikachu you won for me. It's not a yellow mouse thing. Ava retorted, hugging the stuffed animal protectively. Leo's face was a mask of exasperation. After much agonizing, Ava finally reduced her luggage to a manageable size. Of course, the giant Pikachu was non-negotiable. Rook and Knight drove them to Leo's apartment complex and helped carry Ava's bags inside. Mr. Evans, the young miss is in your care now. We've been with her for a long time. Please, you must keep her safe. As they left, the two bodyguards gripped Leo's hands, tears in their eyes. Leo wasn't sure if they were tears of sorrow or tears of joy at finally being free from her command. He closed the door and turned around. He and Ava locked eyes for a moment, then quickly looked away, the air thick with awkwardness. So, the guest room is this way. Want to see? Leo broke the silence. Okay. Leo showed Ava to the guest room. Though it was unused, he kept it clean. Ava refused his offer to help and made the bed herself before starting to arrange her things in the empty room. Leo sat on the sofa with Reggie, holding the cat's little paws and waving them around. Reggie's face was a mask of annoyance, but he was powerless to resist. Man and cat sat there, watching Ava bustle in and out of the room. Leo frowned. He felt like he was forgetting something. Well, he thought, if I can't remember it, it probably wasn't important. 2 hours later, Ava was finally done. She had changed into casual clothes and came out of her room to find Leo and Reggie playing poker on the sofa. Leo, his face a mask of concentration, drew a card from the deck, flipped it over, and slammed it down in front of Reggie. King of spades. Fisk, stupid cat. You're gonna lose this hand too? Leo said smugly. Meow. Not yet. Reggie's face was defiant. In the past 2 hours of playing high card, he had lost repeatedly, but he believed this time would be different. He used his little paw to slide a card from the deck, then painstakingly flipped it over with both paws. Queen of diamonds. Just 1 pip lower than Leo's. TSK, TSK, TSK. Too bad, stupid cat. With this, you now owe me a grand total of 10 favors. Leo grinned triumphantly. 10 favors. Bossing this cat around was going to be so much easier now. Meow. Again. Reggie, still unconvinced of his defeat, challenged Leo to another round. Thwack, thwack, ow, meow, ouch. Ava delivered a sharp rap to both of their heads. You two have been playing for this long and didn't think to help me once? She demanded. You said you didn't need help, Leo mumbled, rubbing his head. Just because I said I don't need help doesn't mean you shouldn't help. Leo was speechless. He realized Ava was just looking for an excuse to hit him. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of the door made them both freeze. Who would be visiting Leo at this hour? Leo got up, confused, and opened the door to a familiar, annoying voice. Leo, what took you so long to open the door? Dylan Miller stood outside, holding a large grocery bag, a look of complaint on his face. Beside him, Chloe Meng smiled at Leo. Sorry to intrude. Leo just stood there, frozen. He finally remembered what that unimportant thing was. Dylan had said he was bringing Chloe over for dinner today. Leo, what are you staring at? Let us in. Leo, who is it? Before Dylan could finish, Ava patted over in her slippers. She stopped halfway, her eyes locking on Dylan, and then on Chloe. Dylan's eyes widened. He looked at Ava, then at Leo. He looked at Ava's slippers, then at Leo's slippers. After a long, silent moment, Dylan looked up, gave Leo a solemn thumbs up, then turned around to leave with Chloe. My apologies, Leo. I didn't realize you and Ava had progressed this far. We'll leave you to it. Get your ass back here. Leo panicked, grabbing Dylan and hauling him back inside. Once they were in, Leo quickly shut the door and looked at Dylan seriously. Listen, I can explain. No need to explain, my friend. I get it. I totally get it. No. Ava, say something. Seeing Dylan's talk to the hand expression, Leo pleaded with Ava for help. But Ava's eyes were vacant. She was frozen in place, completely unresponsive, even when Chloe waved a hand in front of her face. On the very first day of living with Leo, no, not even a full day, they had been discovered by the two people who absolutely should not have discovered them. All Ava wanted was for the floor to swallow her whole. Half an hour later, Chloe and Ava were whispering in the guest room, while Leo had finally managed to explain the living situation to Dylan. Dylan sat on the sofa, his eye twitching. So you're telling me that Ava is staying here because her family is out of town for a couple of days, and she's worried you'll bully this cat? Exactly. She just moved in today. Look, that giant yellow mouse thing just came up from downstairs. Leo pointed to the Pikachu on the sofa, which Ava hadn't had a chance to take to her room yet. Dylan blinked, then sighed heavily. Leo, man, we're best friends. Why are you so nervous? If you're living together, just say so. It's not a big deal. Why make up such a ridiculous story to lie to me? Leo opened his mouth and closed it. He was done. Believe what you want. I don't care what you and Ava are up to, but I came here today to share some great news. Dylan grinned, glanced towards Ava's room, and leaned in to whisper in Leo's ear. Chloe and I are official. He looked at Leo triumphantly, but Leo's expression was deadpan. So, what does that have to do with you freeloading dinner at my place? What kind of talk is that? You're my best friend. Of course I'd tell you something this important in person. The truth. Ugh. Fine. Remember at the Korean barbecue place, Chloe said she wanted to treat you to a meal? Dylan shot Leo a dirty look. To this day, Chloe still thought Leo had paid for that dinner. So, I figured we could just kill two birds with one stone and eat here. I used to crash here for food all the time anyway. But I had no idea you and Ava were. Before they could finish, the door to Ava's room opened, and the two girls emerged arm in arm like best friends. Ava wasn't as embarrassed anymore. She'd come to terms with it. She and Leo had done nothing wrong. She had nothing to be ashamed of. Leo, Dylan told you, right? Chloe said with a smile. Since Ava is here too, we decided we'd cook for you guys and let you taste our handiwork. Leo? Dylan. The two friends immediately went on high alert, exchanging encrypted looks. Leo, what's going on? You didn't say Chloe was cooking. Dylan, how was I supposed to know? I thought you were cooking. Leo, is Chloe's cooking any good? Is it edible? Dylan, don't get your hopes up. What about Ava, Leo? In that moment, they set aside all their past grievances and formed an alliance. They had to stop this sisterly duo from entering the kitchen. Leo stood up, launching the first offensive. You know, since this is my house, I don't feel right letting you guys cook. I should do it. Ava immediately shot back. Leo, are you saying you don't trust my cooking? Of course I don't. Leo screamed internally, but he said, no, of course not. I'm just worried you're not familiar with my kitchen. It's fine. If I can't figure something out, I'll just ask you. But if you say another word, it means you don't trust me. Leo sat back down and threw his hands up at Dylan. I tried, man. Dylan glared at him. Useless. He stood up, launching the second wave. Chloe, I think. Sit down. Chloe said with a sweet smile. Okay. Dylan immediately shut up and sat down. Leo stared at him, dumbfounded. Dude, you did 0 damage. Did you trade your entire spine for this relationship? On the balcony, Reggie glanced at the two of them and yawned. This new human was even more pathetic than his owner. And so, Chloe and Ava closed the kitchen door and began cooking up a storm. Leo and Dylan lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling with vacant eyes, as if awaiting their execution. Are they really going to be okay in there? Leo kept glancing at the kitchen, worried. They're not going to blow it up, are they? Relax, Leo. Maybe they'll surprise us. Don't always assume the worst, Dylan said reassuringly. As it turned out, Leo had been overthinking it. While Ava and Chloe's cooking skills were indeed questionable, they weren't quite at the level of causing an explosion. An hour later, the four of them sat at the dining table. Leo and Dylan stared at the 2 dishes before them in stunned silence. Ava and Chloe, limited in their abilities, had quickly realized they'd overestimated themselves and had each managed to produce only 1 dish. These wings. Leo poked at a chicken wing on the plate. I made them. What do you think? Ava's eyes were shining with excitement. This was her unique, creative dish. Leo's eye twitched as he surveyed the plate of multicolored wings. I'm relatively familiar with this yellow one. This green one. That's spinach juice. I added spinach juice. The purple one. Dragon fruit. And this black one. I burned it, she announced with absolutely no shame. Then this orange one. That's Cajun spiced. Seriously, Leo, I can forgive you for not recognizing the others, but you don't know this one. Ava said, slightly offended. Leo's mouth twitched. It's mainly because it's on the same plate as these other contestants. I didn't expect it to be so normal. Ava clapped her hands, looking at Leo expectantly. So, are my chicken wings creative? Oh, they're creative, all right. Creatively trying to kill me, Leo thought, his spirit dying. Just when Leo thought Ava's dish was the pinnacle of culinary chaos, he saw what Chloe had made. He and Dylan stared at the black, lumpy mass in the bowl before them and swallowed hard. Chloe, what is this? Dylan asked meekly. Salt-baked eggs, Chloe said, looking guilty. There was a slight accident during the cooking process. Leo raised an eyebrow. Just how slight of an accident could turn eggs into that? Well, Chloe explained, her face turning red. I saw online that for salt-baked eggs, you're supposed to lay down a bed of salt, then add peppercorns and star anise, and then bury the eggs in it. Get to the point. The eggs exploded. Chloe hung her head, too embarrassed to look at them. She had wanted to show off, but she had clearly overestimated her skills. Even Ava's rainbow chicken wings were better than this. At least they were edible. Leo and Dylan simultaneously slapped their foreheads and sighed. They should have put up more of a fight. How about we just eat out? Leo suggested. Yeah, I just remember my uncle opened a new barbecue place recently. How about I take you guys there? Dylan quickly agreed. He felt like if he actually ate what the girls had made, a stomachache would be the best-case scenario. Ava and Chloe didn't object, now fully aware of their limitations. However, Ava insisted that Leo try at least one of her chicken wings. Left with no choice, he picked the safest-looking one, the Cajun spiced wing. How was it? Let's just say Leo was very glad he chose the Cajun one. He couldn't even imagine what the other contenders tasted like. But, in the spirit of not wasting food, Leo didn't throw the 2 dishes away. Instead, hit. Reggie, you're getting a special dinner tonight, Leo said with a villainous grin, carrying the 2 plates of culinary dark matter towards the cat. Meow. What do you think you're doing? Reggie's fur stood on end. He scrambled backwards in terror, but he was already cornered on the balcony with nowhere else to go. Reggie, you should think this through. This is food that Ava made. If you refuse it, you'll hurt her feelings. Leo's voice was like the devil's whisper. Besides, you lost our game, and you owe me 10 favors. I'm sure our little Reggie is a cat who keeps his promises, right? Seeing the look of utter despair on Reggie's face, Leo felt a deep sense of satisfaction. That's what you get for being an ungrateful little furball. I've been keeping a list of all your transgressions. Payback is a bitch. Reggie stared at the 2 plates of doom, his feline face a portrait of conflict. To eat or not to eat? That was the question. As he was leaving, Leo leaned in and whispered to the cat. Remember to clean your plate. Be an honest little kitty. Click. The door closed, leaving behind one heartbroken cat. Meow. I was wrong. Reggie was filled with regret. Not regret for being ungrateful to Leo, but regret for turning over that queen of diamonds. If he had picked any other card, he might have won. A gambler cat, losing it all in the end. Yeah, Uncle, I'm bringing a few friends to your place in a bit. We're about 10 minutes out. What? You're there now? That's great. I can finally introduce you to Chloe. Okay, see you in a bit. In the Uber, Dylan sat in the front passenger seat, talking to his uncle on the phone. The other three sat in the back. Hearing that she was about to meet Dylan's uncle, Chloe began nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. Dylan turned around opportunistically. Chloe, don't be nervous. My uncle is a really nice guy. It's just a casual meeting. Okay, she whispered, still looking tense. Leo raised an eyebrow, a knowing glint in his eye. This whole thing was a setup, wasn't it? Dylan had planned this all along, to introduce Chloe to his family. If so, the move was deviously brilliant. A short while later, the car pulled up in front of a barbecue joint. Eat, or don't. Barbecue. Leo's eye twitched as he read the sign. I came up with the name. Catchy, right? Dylan said excitedly. The other three looked down silent. Your uncle has the patience of a saint for not killing you. Before Dylan could say more, a figure emerged from the restaurant and walked towards them. Uncle. Dylan waved enthusiastically. Leo, Ava, and Chloe looked up. Leo and Ava froze. They recognized the man Dylan called uncle. In fact, they found it utterly unbelievable. Arthur Wallace, the man from the Phoenix Pavilion, the representative of the Gray Zone family, the Warren Collective. He's Dylan's uncle. Leo and Ava turned their heads in perfect sync to stare at Dylan. You little punk. You were supposed to be a normal guy. Since when did you have this kind of background? Arthur Wallace smiled, but his expression faltered when he saw Leo and Ava. He didn't know Leo well, but he definitely knew Ava Reed. Why was Dylan hanging out with the Reeds? Uncle, this is Chloe, my girlfriend. Dylan said excitedly, pulling Chloe forward. And this is my buddy, Leo, and that's Ava. Then he turned to the others. And this is my uncle. Hello, uncle. Chloe stammered, still nervous. Arthur recovered quickly. Hello. Chloe, right? You're beautiful. Way too good for our Dylan. Uncle, what are you talking about? Dylan grumbled. He was handsome too, wasn't he? Come on, let's not stand around outside. Let's go in and talk. Arthur smiled, beckoning them inside. He acted like an ordinary restaurant owner, with none of the powerful aura he'd had at the Phoenix Pavilion. As they walked, he gave Leo and Ava a subtle shake of his head, signaling them to keep quiet. Leo's interest was piqued. What is Arthur Wallace trying to hide? So, while everyone else was ordering, Leo found an excuse to corner Arthur in a quiet corner of the restaurant. Seeing it was Leo, Arthur frowned slightly. He hadn't investigated Leo, so he wasn't sure of his exact relationship with the Reed family. But given his friendship with Dylan, it was clearly close. Mr. Wallace, long time no see, Leo said with a sly smile. Arthur stared at him, then sighed softly. Dylan doesn't know anything about the Warren Collective. Bingo. Leo's eyes lit up. He had been right. Dylan's parents passed away when he was very young, so I've been the one to raise him all these years. Arthur Wallace lit a cigarette, his voice gravelly as he spoke to Leo about Dylan's past. For certain reasons, some people in the Warren Collective weren't happy with him, so I've kept him away from the family. When he was old enough, I sent him out here to Ethelberg for university. All this time, he's thought I was his only living relative. He has no idea the Warren Collective even exists. Leo listened, his brow furrowed. He already knew about Dylan's parents. Dylan had told him that story himself. The real issue was, this old geezer was just going to smoke and tell stories by himself? Where was Leo's cigarette? Couldn't he spare one for him? Leo grumbled internally, but then thought better of it. If Ava caught him smoking in some forgotten corner with a middle-aged man, she'd probably lose her mind. So, you're saying Dylan knows absolutely nothing about the major families? That's right. Arthur Wallace nodded. Which is why I hope your Reed family doesn't drag him in all this. I don't mind you two being friends, but I don't want him in danger. Do you understand? Leo blinked. Why are you telling me this? I'm not a Reed. You should be talking to Julian. TCH, right? Leo remembered. Julian's probably chewing on a protein bar in some corner of the crucible right now. Don't you worry, Uncle Arthur, Leo said, patting his chest with a flourish. Given my relationship with Dylan, I guarantee he'll live a perfectly normal, ordinary life. He flashed Arthur a brilliant smile. Arthur Wallace was about to nod in satisfaction when Leo's tone shifted. But Leo's teeth gleamed. Dylan is my best friend. Keeping a secret like this from him, it weighs heavily on my conscience. Arthur's brow furrowed. So, whenever we come to your barbecue joint from now on, could you maybe comp our meals? That's it. Arthur was momentarily stunned. Holy hell, I thought you were going to use this as leverage, make all sorts of demands. And all you want is free barbecue? Can't you have a little more ambition? A flicker of regret crossed Arthur's mind. He was starting to think that getting involved with this Leo Evans character, either for Dylan or himself, was not going to be a good thing. Fine, he conceded. From now on, Anytime you bring people here, it's on the house. Uncle Arthur, you're a true gentleman. Leo clapped his hands together, the title rolling off his tongue more naturally than it ever did for Dylan. Leo, what are you guys doing over here? Dylan poked his head around the corner. He'd been looking for Leo for a while, only to find him huddled in this nook with his uncle, whispering about who knows. His eyes narrowed, studying them. Something fell off. Arthur frowned. Has Dylan already figured out? What do I do? Leo shot Arthur a reassuring glance before leaning in and whispering into Dylan's ear. I'm over here, putting a good word for you with Chloe. What are you interrupting for? He continued in a low voice. I was just singing your praises. Our uncle has a fantastic impression of Chloe now. You owe me dinner for this, by the way. Leo clapped Dylan on the shoulder and gave him a look. Real friends don't need words. Realization dawned on Dylan's face, and a wave of guilt washed over him. He'd completely misjudged Leo. The guy might not always act like a decent human being, but when it mattered, he really looked out for his friends. He nodded firmly and whispered back, Don't worry, Leo. I won't forget this. When Chloe and I get married, you'll have a seat at the head table guaranteed. Yeah, we'll see if you don't kick me out of the reception hall when you find out the truth, Leo thought to himself. The two said their goodbyes to Arthur and returned to their table. Leo leaned close to Ava's ear and quickly recounted his conversation with the older man. And that's the long and short of it. So from now on, we eat here for free. Hearing the conclusion, Ava couldn't help but roll her eyes. That's what you think is the important part. Also, Leo added, do me a favor and remember that Dylan owes me a dinner, and we get the head table at his wedding. Why don't you remember it yourself? Based on our respective abilities to hold a grudge, your memory is probably better than mine. Thump. Leo's foot got stomped on. Thanks to Dylan's connection, the rest of the meal was a feast. Arthur brought out the best cuts of meat the restaurant had to offer. He also expressed his sincere joy and blessings for Dylan and Chloe's budding romance, which naturally left the two of them beaming. To give the four of them some space, Arthur ate with them for a bit before making an excuse to leave. As he walked away, he couldn't help but glance back at Leo, who was devouring food like a starved animal. His eye twitched. If Leo ate like this every time he came, how was he supposed to keep the restaurant in business? Whatever, he sighed. If it gets too bad, I'll just put a sign on the door. No dogs or Leos allowed. Hey, Leo, are you going to Old Man Miller's class tomorrow? Dylan asked. What do you think? He's going over the final exam review. You're not going. I heard the university isn't letting professors give out exam topics anymore. Seriously? Then how are we supposed to pass? Why the hell are you worried? It's slackers like me who should be worried, Dylan said, giving Leo a look of contempt. You need an exam review? Your entire brain is an exam review. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Dylan quickly stood up, graciously placed a slice of grilled beef on Leo's plate, and put on his most fawning expression. Leo, my man, how about you help me out during the final? My standards aren't high. Just a passing grade is all I ask. He was asking Leo to help him cheat. Leo lowered his eyes, slowly and deliberately chewing the beef Dylan had given him. He spoke in a flat tone. Dylan, you know I'm not that kind of person. I'll buy you the new Yasuo skin. But then again, Leo's tone changed instantly. It's not like that kind of thing is completely out of the question. He looked up, and their eyes met in a shared, conspiratorial grin. It wasn't that Leo couldn't afford the skin himself, but the meaning was different. This skin was a tribute from Dylan. The psychological satisfaction that came with it was something money couldn't buy. Well, since you put it that way, it wouldn't be right for me, as your best friend, not to help you. Ava and Chloe bit their lips, watching the transaction with matching expressions of disdain. What a disgusting display of brotherly love. Later, this very deal would make Dylan want to murder Leo. As they continued to eat, Leo noticed Ava seemed distracted. What's wrong? He asked quietly. I'm just wondering how my brother and the others are doing. A note of worry was in her voice. Don't worry. They've landed on the island. Everything's going smoothly. How do you know? Ava asked, puzzled. Leo smiled confidently. He pulled out his phone, opened his messages, and handed it to her. On the screen was a chat log with Alex Young. The most recent message, sent not long ago, contained only 5 words. Reads have landed. All clear. And the message just before that read, Phone Alliance is en route. Ava's mouth fell open slightly as she stared at Leo in astonishment. Leo looked smug. Didn't see that coming, did you? I got a guy on the inside of the BSO. I'm their psychologist after all. However, Leo's pride lasted less than 2 seconds before his expression shifted to one of pure terror, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He watched as Ava gave him a gentle smile, then quickly swiped her finger across the phone screen. Her slender thumb tapped lightly on the photo gallery icon. This was it. He'd let his guard down. A wave of dread, more potent than any he had ever felt, washed over Leo. Anyone in the world could look at his photo gallery. Anyone except Ava. It would be a death sentence. He had thought she'd forgotten, or maybe even given up on her quest to see his phone's photos. He never imagined she'd been lying in wait all this time. Leo had completely forgotten that he'd just accused her of being good at holding grudges. Right now, Ava's finger was on the screen. The photo gallery was a Pandora's box, about to be flung open. With a wicked little smile, she looked like a devilish imp. Leo could almost see the pair of small black horns sprouting from her head again. He lunged for the phone, but it was too late. The gallery opened automatically to the first picture. And then, a cat's face filled the entire screen, its eyes wide with immense confusion. Leo. Ava. Why is it Reggie? Ava frowned. She swiped through a few more photos. All of them, without exception, were selfies of Sir Reginald Fluffington. Just then, Leo's hand reached his phone, snatching it from Ava's grasp. Phew. Man, that Reggie, Leo muttered, quickly turning off the phone. He really shouldn't be taking my phone to snap pictures while I'm gone. I'm going to have to teach him a lesson when I get back. Inside, he wanted to grab that cat, hug him tight, and plant a dozen kisses on his furry head. You magnificent dummy. I have no idea why you took selfies on my phone, but your supply of tuna is secured for life. You are my eternal savior. Ava's hands were now empty, her cheeks puffed out in frustration. She had been so close. After this, Leo's vigilance would be at an all-time high, making it even harder for her to get another look at his gallery. That stupid Reggie, just you wait. All of Ava's resentment was now squarely focused on the cat. If it hadn't been for his curiosity, for him secretly playing with Leo's phone, she would have finally been able to destroy those incriminating photos from her past. Frustrated, Ava attacked her barbecue with renewed vigor. Meanwhile, back at Leo's apartment, Reggie was sprawled on the balcony, looking miserable as he nibbled tiny bites of the Cajun spiced chicken wings Ava had made. Suddenly, a shiver ran through his entire body. He felt as if some terrifying presence had just locked onto him. He scanned his surroundings warily, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Meow. Was that just my imagination? Reggie gave a soft cry, shook his head, and went back to chewing on the grotesquely colorful chicken wing. He had to finish it all before Leo got back. He was a cat of his word, after all. At the Lynn Syndicate headquarters, Marcus Lynn stared at a file in his hand, his expression shifting between light and shadow. That maniac Julian Reed actually dragged the Foam Alliance into the Crucible. He muttered to himself, and what the hell is going on with the BSO? Since when are they working with the Reeds? The Foams have been making strange moves, too. Could Julian have discovered something? Marcus's head throbbed. Things were spiraling completely out of his control. Or perhaps he'd been on the outside, looking in from the very beginning. He buried his head in his hands, slumping onto the sofa in frustration. No matter how clever he was, his mind was a tangled mess. Where the hell did it all go wrong? Marcus raged impotently. It seemed that ever since he had dispatched Wyatt Kane, everything had gone completely off the rails. Victor Fang's suspicion, the BSO's sudden intervention, and Julian's decisive declaration of war. It was all happening too fast. They say no plan survives contact with the enemy, but this is ridiculous. Marcus sighed. Things were what they were. He had no choice but to change his plan. Again, the thought alone was exhausting. How many times had he revised his strategy already? He wouldn't be surprised if something new happened tomorrow that forced him to change it yet again. Okay, let's just think this through. Marcus took a breath, closed his eyes, and began to organize the chaos in his mind. The Foams and the Reeds are both on the Crucible now. The BSO is stretched thin, acting as observers. The Warren Collective, no movement yet. They're probably waiting to see how things play out. So, the only piece I can move right now is Ava Reed. His eyes snapped open at the thought, his brow furrowed. Should he make a move on Ava? Marcus hesitated. He wanted to, but he was afraid. He feared that Julian had set a trap around his sister. Even with Julian off on the Crucible, he still didn't dare. He'd been burned once before, and the memory was still fresh. I can't move against her, but that doesn't mean someone else can't. And that person can't be from the Lynn Syndicate. They can't even have a whiff of a connection to us. Wyatt Kane is probably out of commission. So who else is there in Ethelberg that I can use? He tapped his fingers on the table, his mind racing. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and a small smile played on his lips. He called out to the door. Wade, here. A man in a hooded sweatshirt entered the room. It was Wade, Marcus Lynn's most trusted operative. Spencer Foam. He was taken to the BSO, correct? Yes. He's being held there now. Can you get him out? Take a few men. Wade was silent for a long moment before he spoke. 10 men. I'll bring him back. Marcus nodded and gave a slight wave of his hand. Go. Make it clean. Yes, sir. Wade silently exited the room to gather his team for the rescue of Spencer Foam. He didn't ask why Marcus wanted to save him. He only knew that every order Marcus gave was for the good of the Lynn Syndicate. After they had been abandoned by that man, Marcus Lynn had single-handedly built the syndicate into what it was today. His men would follow his word without a moment's hesitation. After Wade left, Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose, a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. Spencer Foam. Marcus let out a self-deprecating laugh. He never thought he'd see the day he would send men to rescue such a useless pawn. But useless is good, he mused. The useless were the easiest to control. Given Spencer's history with the Reeds, all Marcus had to do was break him out and give him a little nudge. That idiot would leap at the chance to get his hands on Ava Reed. By the time Julian won his war against the Foams, it would be a Pyrrhic victory at best. And with Ava in Marcus's hands, Julian and the entire Reed family would be powerless against him. He could crush both the Foams and the Reeds without lifting a finger. Then, the path for the Lynn Syndicate to become a sovereign syndicate would be clear. This time, the plan is foolproof. A confident smile spread across Marcus's face as he slowly closed his hand into a fist. It was as if everything was finally back under his control. Eat, or don't. Barbecue. Leo was finally starting to feel full. The other three had finished eating long ago. Dylan's eye twitched. He was sure Leo's appetite had grown even larger. How was Ava supposed to afford feeding a guy who ate like this? Ava covered her face with one hand and turned away, mortified to be associated with him. Arthur Wallace was already mentally drafting the text for his new sign. Eventually, once Leo was completely stuffed, the group finally left the restaurant. Uncle Arthur, we're heading out. All right, come back again soon. Except for Leo, Arthur said with a smile. Dylan and the others stood at the door, waving goodbye to his uncle. Leo's eyes met Arthur's, and they exchanged an almost imperceptible nod. Arthur's nod meant, remember your promise. Keep Dylan out of this. Leo's nod meant, the food was great. I'll be back. Clearly, they had completely misunderstood each other, but that didn't stop them from having their moment of silent, mutual understanding. After walking for a while, the group of four split into two, each couple heading off to enjoy their own private time. A world of four, after all, was a bit too crowded. All right, let's get an Uber and head home, Leo said, pulling out his phone. Ava's eyes darted around. Seeing that the sun hadn't set yet, she said, Leo, let's go hiking at Rainbow Ridge. Huh. Leo's mouth twitched. Do you have any idea how high that is? You think you can make it to the top? Ava's lip jutted out. But I heard there's a wishing tree at the summit. So, I want to go pray for my brother's safety. It's a wishing tree. For romance. Then I'll wish for a romance for him. He's single anyway. Leo put a hand to his forehead, looking at her skeptically. Are you sure you can handle the climb? Of course. I got a perfect score on my fitness test back in the day, Ava declared confidently. And so, Leo had no choice but to change the Uber's destination to the base of Rainbow Ridge. Less than an hour later, the base of Rainbow Ridge was packed with people. Leo and Ava stood there silently, their faces blank as they stared at the scene in front of them. Standing there were two very familiar figures. Ahem. Fancy meeting you here. You guys came for a hike too? Dylan scratched his head. Chloe, standing beside him, looked just as surprised. It had been a spur-of-the-moment decision for them to come to Rainbow Ridge. They never expected to run into Leo and Ava. Leo stared at Dylan with dead eyes. What are you two doing here? What kind of question is that? We're here to hike, obviously. Not to see the wishing tree. Whoa, how'd you know? Dylan glanced at Chloe, then leaned in conspiratorially to Leo. Chloe wanted to make a wish at the tree and, snap a picture for her feed. Leo nodded. Great. Everyone's here for that stupid tree. I don't get it, Leo said with a sigh. Why are so many people drawn to this superstitious nonsense? Tell me about it, Dylan agreed. Who even believes in all this hocus-pocus these days? And so, the four of them began the long climb. The first fifth of the trail was relatively easy. The first to falter was Chloe. By the time they were a third of the way up, Dylan was supporting her, their pace slowing considerably. Ava was also drenched in sweat, pausing every so often to catch her breath. It was clear her stamina was reaching its limit. Leo raised an eyebrow and whispered to Ava, I hear you have to climb this mountain step by step, on your own 2 feet, or the wish won't come true. Ava exhaled, shooting him a glare. Who told you that? That old guy who was coming down. We chatted for a minute. I can't go on. Leo, you have to carry me. TSK. What about wishing for your brother's romance? Forget it. If he's single, he's single. Leo's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but feel a pang of pity for Julian. So, this is how much you're worth in your sister's eyes? With a small laugh, Leo crouched down in front of Ava. She leaned forward, collapsing softly onto his back. Leo, charge. Ava, suddenly re-energized, pointed ahead excitedly. Charge your head. The trail is packed. What if I run into someone? Leo scolded playfully. He hooked his hands under her legs and began walking up the mountain, one steady step at a time. The people around them saw Leo carrying Ava without so much as breaking a sweat or panting, and they gave him a thumbs up, marveling at the stamina of today's youth. Seeing this from behind, Dylan gritted his teeth. How could his physical fitness be worse than Leo's? He immediately squatted down and said with a commanding air, Chloe, get on. I'll carry you. Chloe didn't argue, climbing straight onto his back. Dylan took a deep breath, pushed up with his legs, stood up, and his face changed. Crap, I overestimated myself. His legs were trembling slightly, but as a man, he had to push through, even if it killed him. He had to carry Chloe to the summit. Dylan, are you okay? Chloe asked, seeing the sweat pouring down his face. She felt a little guilty. Maybe I should get down and walk. No, it's fine, Dylan insisted. Don't worry, Chloe, I work out all the time. A little hike like this is a piece of cake. Up ahead, Leo's ears twitched. Hearing Dylan's boast, he silently gave him a thumbs up. You got a big mouth, my friend. Let's see how long you can keep it up. To Leo's surprise, however, Dylan actually managed to carry Chloe all the way to the top, his teeth clenched the entire time. At the small shrine on the summit of Rainbow Ridge, Dylan sat on a bench, gasping for air, his legs shaking uncontrollably like a butterfly's wings. Leo stood nearby, making a clicking sound with his tongue. Is the power of love really this great? He mused aloud. Dylan shot him a glare. He was too tired to even speak. Leo sat down next to him, his gaze drifting towards a large tree not far away. Under the wishing tree, Ava and Chloe were each holding a red paper ribbon, writing something on it. They were also taking pictures with their phones. Leo and Dylan both shook their heads slightly, sneering at such superstitious behavior. They were both proud, logical atheists. Mommy, look, there's a shrine of fortune over there, a child's voice called out from behind them. Leo's and Dylan's ears perked up. They simultaneously stood up and looked at each other. Fortune? Now that they could believe in, Dylan instantly forgot about his wobbly legs. He followed close behind Leo, heading straight for the shrine without a second glance back. Under the wishing tree, Ava was carefully writing her wish on a ribbon. Hey, Ava, did you buy 2 ribbons? Chloe noticed that Ava was writing on a second one. Yeah, Ava nodded lightly, her face turning red. Because I have a lot of wishes. Chloe just smiled, not pressing the issue. A small smile played on Ava's lips as she finished writing. She found an empty branch and carefully tied both ribbons to it. One was a prayer for Julian and the others to return safely. The other was for Leo. She didn't care if this tree was only supposed to be for romance. She had 2 wishes, and she just wanted them both to come true. After tying their ribbons, the 2 girls took a few more pictures, tagged their location, and then went to find Leo and Dylan. Oh, that's weird. Where did they go? Chloe scratched her head. How could 2 grown men just disappear in the blink of an eye? Chloe, look at that crowd over there. Should we go check it out? Ava pointed toward a group of people gathered around the Shrine of Fortune, her eyes filled with curiosity. As for Leo and Dylan, it wasn't like 2 grown men could get kidnapped in broad daylight, right? The 2 of them made their way towards the shrine. Pushing through the crowd, Ava and Chloe saw the 2 incredibly devout figures at the center, and they froze. The 2 men at the heart of the crowd were, of course, Leo and Dylan. Just as they were wondering what was going on, the actions of Leo and Dylan made them want to turn around and pretend they didn't know them. Ava's face turned bright red. She was utterly mortified. You damn hypocrite, Leo. I thought you didn't believe in superstitious nonsense. Such devotion. It's truly remarkable. Unbelievable. One can only imagine the depths of poverty that would inspire such a desperate yearning for money. Look at the purity in their eyes. No distracting thoughts. Nothing but the God of fortune in their hearts. True believers. These are true believers. Before the shrine statue, Leo and Dylan knelt side by side on cushions. They pressed their palms together, raised their hands high above their heads, and bowed deeply. And then looked up. Ava and Chloe thought that would be the end of it. But to their astonishment, Leo and Dylan remained kneeling and began to speak, one after the other. "Oh, mighty and all-powerful God of fortune," Leo began. "Please bestow upon us endless wealth." Dylan continued. Your two most devoted disciples, said Leo. Hereby offer you our everything, said Dylan. If you can hear the deepest cries of our hearts, said Leo. Then please, grant us a sign, so that we may know you are with us, said Dylan. Amen, said Leo. Hallelujah, said Dylan. Then, they once again pressed their palms together, raised their hands high, and bowed deeply one more time. It looked like some sort of bizarre cult ritual. A dead silence fell over the crowd. The people who had just been praising them were now tight-lipped, unsure of what to say. Every single line was ripe for mockery, but at the same time, it felt like a waste of breath. In the midst of this silent spectacle, Ava and Chloe buried their faces in their hands, overcome with secondhand embarrassment. They clenched their small fists, wishing they could march up there, grab the two of them, and give them a sound beating. Finally, Leo and Dylan's ritual concluded. They stood up, casting long, reluctant glances back at the shrine as they walked away. Leo, you think that really worked? Trust me, it's guaranteed to work. No one is more devout than us. If the God of Fortune really has money to give, he'll definitely think of us first. Okay, that's a relief. Hey, where did Chloe and the others go? The two looked around and finally spotted Ava and Chloe a short distance away. They started walking towards them. Strangely, the moment Ava and Chloe saw them approaching, they reacted as if they'd seen a ghost, covering their faces and scurrying away. Who are those two? Never seen them before. We came here by ourselves. This is way too embarrassing. Weird. Why are they running? Leo asked, confused. I don't know. Maybe they made some embarrassing wish, and now they're too shy to face us. Dylan guessed boldly. Could be. You know how girls are, always worried about appearances, Leo said, nodding in agreement. On the way down the mountain, no matter what Leo and Dylan said, Ava and Chloe wouldn't respond. They even kept their distance. The two guys were completely baffled. It wasn't until they reached the base of the mountain, where the crowds had thinned out, that the two girls were finally willing to speak to them. I thought you two didn't believe in superstitious nonsense, Ava said angrily. The God of Fortune is an exception, Leo and Dylan said in unison, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You, Ava pointed a finger at Leo, her mouth opening and closing for a moment before she finally just let out a huff and gave up. Don't get angry, don't get angry. It's not worth it. Chloe just gave a wry smile. She never thought that hanging out with Leo would make Dylan so ridiculous. Finally, they all said their goodbyes. It was getting late, and it was really time for them to head their separate ways. As Leo and Ava got into their Uber, Dylan gave Leo a sly look, a subtle thumbs up, and an expression of pure envy. Look at Leo and Ava, already living together. Would he ever get to that stage? Leo, his face a mask of indifference, responded with a middle finger. By the time they got home, it was already 10 o'clock at night. They flipped on the lights, and the first thing Leo saw was Reggie, the little white cat, lying on his back on a balcony, legs in the air, looking like he was on death's door. Leo rushed over and scooped him up. Reggie's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Leo, lifted a tiny paw, pointed an empty plate on the table, and let out a soft whimper. Meow. I finished it. Meow. Only 9 favors left. A wave of emotion washed over Leo. You dummy. You really. I could cry. You saved my skin. If it weren't for you, Ava would have seen the photos on my phone. And what did I do? I forced you to eat that poisonous concoction. I'm a monster. Guilt gnawed at Leo. Leo, what's wrong with Reggie? Ava asked as she struggled to take off her shoes. She was wearing boots today, and they were a bit difficult to remove. Leo blinked, his back still to her. Nothing. Reggie's just asleep. Oomph. He's lucky he fell asleep fast. I was just about to settle the score with him. Ava hadn't forgotten. If it weren't for Reggie, she would have seen Leo's photo gallery. Leo's eyebrow twitched. You wanted to wake him up for you. Might as well let her take out her anger on the cat while she's still fired up, he thought. Otherwise, she'll probably take it out on me later. What about all that guilt I was just feeling? Don't be ridiculous. How much is that worth? Besides, this dumb cat won't die from it. Leo would remember this favor. As for when he'd repay it, that was another question entirely. Hearing Leo's offer, Ava stood there, tilting her head in thought for a moment. Forget it. I'll let him off the hook this time. She decided to drop it. He was just a little cat. What did he know? It was an accident, so he could be forgiven. That's great, Reggie. You just dodged a bullet, Leo said to the cat, feigning relief. Reggie managed to open his eyes and swatted a weak paw at Leo. Leo caught the paw and whispered, Reggie, you just get some rest. I'll be sure to put in a good word for you. With that, he dropped Reggie into his cat bed and let him sleep in peace. Phew. Leo let out a long breath, crossed his hands, and grabbed the hem of his shirt, habitually preparing to take it off. Suddenly, he froze, his hands hovering in midair. He'd forgotten. He wasn't living alone anymore. Now that he and Ava were under the same roof, he couldn't just be as carefree at home as he used to be. Ava blinked at the sight. Are you going to take a shower? She asked softly. Why don't you go first? Leo offered. There's shampoo and everything in the bathroom. Ava nodded and silently went into her room. The hike had made her sweaty, and she couldn't stand it a moment longer. A few moments later, she emerged with some toiletries, her eyes darting around as she hurried towards the bathroom. At the door, she glanced back at Leo. "Well, I'm going first. You can go after." Then, she quickly slipped inside and shut the door so fast that Leo barely got a look at her. Leo sat down on the sofa and shook his head gently. With nothing else to do, he pulled out his phone and started playing Candy Crush. He still hadn't beaten that level from the afternoon. Night fell, blanketing Ethelberg City in silence. The Bureau of Syndicate Oversight, basement level. This was where the BSO held its prisoners. Anyone apprehended by BSO agent was brought here, with the majority of the Bureau's forces dispatched to observe the conflict on the Crucible. Only a skeleton crew remained to guard these inmates. But tonight, the sealed basement door was open. The two agents on duty lay in pools of their own blood, their lives extinguished. Wade stood with 10 members of the Lynn Syndicate in front of Spencer Fang's cell, his face grim. He took out his phone and dialed Marcus Lynn. When the call connected, he spoke slowly. "Boss, Spencer phone. He's not at the BSO. We were too late. Someone got to him before we did." And Wade swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on several Lynn Syndicate crests scattered on the floor. His voice dropped to a low growl. "They also killed the BSO agents and left our family's crest behind. We've been set up." Half an hour has passed. Leo still hadn't cleared his Candy Crush level. But that wasn't the point. Reggie had already recovered from his near-death experience. Yet Ava still wasn't out of the shower. Did something happen to her? Leo glanced towards the bathroom. At this rate, she'd be boiled alive in there. He rose carefully and tiptoed to the bathroom door. "I'm not thinking anything weird. I'm just genuinely worried about her," he muttered to himself. Leo raised his hand and knocked. The sound clearly startled Ava. "Leo, are you crazy?" Knocking all of a sudden, she yelped. You were in there for so long, I was worried something might have happened." "Happened to your head. Don't you know girls take a long time to shower?" "How am I supposed to know that?" Leo rubbed his nose. He never really spent much time around girls before. He trudged back to the sofa, his heart aching. A shower this long meant the water and electricity bill was going to be higher next month. His already strained finances were about to take another hit. "Nope, gotta write this down. I'll get Julian to reimburse me later." An idea took shape. Leo rummaged through a drawer, found a pen and paper, and began to write. Since Julian had pawned Ava off on him, it was only fair to ask for a little compensation, right? Water and electricity. Let's say $2,000. Leo scribbled quickly. Julian had no proof, so he'd have to pay whatever Leo asked. If he didn't pay, he wouldn't get his sister back. Leo would hold her hostage. At that thought, Leo's lips curled into a wicked grin. He was going to fleece Julian for all he was worth. Ava's accommodation fee. Ava's living expenses fee. Ava's atmospheric oxygen usage fee. By the time he got to the bottom, on the line for the grand total, Leo had written down the astronomical sum of $100,000. He mentally schemed about how to get Ava to put her thumbprint on it. What could Julian possibly say to that? Click! The bathroom door creaked open, and Ava appeared in the doorway. Her damp hair clung to her cheeks and neck, and water droplets trickled down from the strands onto the floor. She had changed into a set of pink pajamas, and a faint blush still lingered on her face. Leo froze for a second before quickly hiding the invoice for Ava's expenses behind his back. "Leo, I'm done." "You can." Ava's words trailed off as her eyes narrowed, darting to the space behind Leo's back. "What are you hiding?" She strode forward. "Nothing. Just doodling," Leo said, standing up and backing away. "Really?" Ava advanced, her expression skeptical. "Then let me see it." Leo's furtive behavior was a dead giveaway that he was up to no good, and Ava had a sixth sense that whatever was on that paper involved her. He was cornered against the wall, the space between them shrinking until their breaths mingled. With a slight twitch of his nose, Leo could smell the faint, sweet scent of her shampoo. TSK. She even uses the fancy stuff. My generic brand isn't good enough, I guess. But that wasn't the point. Leo forced a smile as Ava, sensing his imminent escape, shot out a hand and grabbed his arm. She pressed closer, her large eyes blinking up at him. "If it's just a doodle, why can't I see it?" Then, she expertly started shaking his arm, her voice turning syrupy. "Leo, come on, let me see. What did you draw that's making you so nervous?" Damn it. This trick again? Leo took a deep breath. Her pleading eyes and coquettish tone were making his heart pound. He was on the verge of surrendering. But then, he remembered. This was his house. It was one thing to be manipulated by her at the Reed estate, but was he really going to fall for the same trick in the same way in his own home? No, absolutely not. With a sudden burst of strength, Leo swept Ava off her feet and into his arms. Hey, Ava was stunned. This was not how she'd envisioned this playing out. How had her ultimate charm attack suddenly failed? Being held in his arms, she was completely at a loss. Leo wasn't faring much better. His arm was wrapped around her back, and he could feel the smoothness and softness of her skin. His traitorous heart began to race again. Leo, what are you doing? Before Ava could finish, Leo was already striding towards her room with her in his arms. Hey, that's my room. Ava cried out. Didn't he know you couldn't just barge into a girl's bedroom? Leo was past caring about such things. He kicked the door open with his foot and tossed Ava onto the bed. Oof! Ava landed on the mattress, her eyes squeezed shut. She crossed her arms over her chest, her face scarlet and her heart hammering. I went too far. She silently cursed herself. And here, in Leo's apartment. What if he lost control? The more she thought about it, the more flustered she became. Being carried to her bed by Leo had thrown her mind into complete chaos. Is he really going to do something to me? A wave of heat washed over her face. As her heart pounded wildly, she was also conflicted. Should she resist? They were both adults, but wasn't this moving a little too fast? They hadn't even kissed yet, and that pig Leo hadn't even officially asked her out or anything. Click! As these thoughts raced through her mind, Ava heard the sound of the door closing, which made her even more nervous. Keeping her eyes shut, she stammered, Leo, please. Please don't do anything rash. See, can we take things slow? I won't tease you anymore, I promise. Can you just let me go this time? After a long moment, Ava heard no reply from Leo. She cautiously opened one eye and was completely bewildered. Leo was nowhere to be seen. She was alone in the room, performing a one-woman play. Phew! Outside the room, Leo clutched the piece of paper, patted his chest, and let out a long sigh of relief. He had managed to resist her spell this time. He was proud of himself. He gave himself a mental pat on the back, waited for his heart to calm down, and looked around. He needed to find a place to hide the paper, fast. Once Ava realized what had happened, he was dead meat. Where to hide it? Leo scanned the room, but couldn't find a suitable spot. There was always a risk Ava might find it. Suddenly, inspiration struck. His gaze fell on Reggie's cat bed. Reggie was curled up in his bed, sleeping soundly. He suddenly shivered, and his eyes fluttered open to see Leo staring at him with a malevolent glint in his eyes. Meow. What do you want now? Hee little Reggie, Leo cackled, approaching the cat bed. You still owe me 9 favors, right? Reggie's feline face fell. He glanced at the paper in Leo's hand and instantly understood. He sighed, reluctantly shifted his body to create a small space behind him, and gestured for Leo to put the paper there. Mio, that makes 8 favors left. Perfect, Leo chuckled, stuffing the paper into the space. He even gave Reggie's head a little pat. Reggie remained expressionless, his heart filled with regret. He should have stayed astray. He never should have played that stupid card game with Leo. With the paper hidden, Leo finally relaxed. Leo! Ava stormed out of the room, furious. She was going to make him pay. Ava, calm down. Calm your head. She wouldn't listen. She launched herself at Leo, bared her little teeth, and bit down hard on his shoulder. Ag! The next morning, Leo and Ava walked to the university together. As they walked side by side, Leo occasionally rubbed his shoulder, where a neat row of teeth marks was hidden beneath his shirt. He glanced at Ava and felt a small sense of relief. At least, by the end of her attack, she had completely forgotten about the piece of paper. The bite hadn't been entirely in vain. Bees, his phone vibrated. Leo pulled it out. It was a message from Alex Young. Combat initiated. Reeds have the advantage. TSK, not bad, Julian. Leo's eyebrows shot up. Looked like he wouldn't have to intervene after all. They walked into the classroom just as the clock was about to strike 8. Perhaps it was a case of bad influence, but Ava, who always used to be early, was now arriving just in the nick of time. Like Leo, Professor Miller was at the lectern preparing for his last lecture of the semester. He saw Leo and Ava walk in together, raise an eyebrow, but said nothing. Because they were late, the only seats left were in the front row. Leo didn't care. He sat down, put his head on the desk, and promptly fell asleep. Professor Miller glanced at him once, then paid him no more mind. It seemed he had grown accustomed to this particular student's habits. Go ahead and sleep. No one can outsleep you. Ahem. This is our last class. Professor Miller cleared his throat, his eyes scanning the lecture hall. I know what you're all thinking, but starting this year, the university has a strict rule against professors giving out exam topics. A collective groan filled the room. However, Miller's tone shifted as he pulled up a presentation on the large screen. The chapters highlighted in yellow are not the important ones. A wave of cheers erupted. Leo startled awake. The room was filled with the flash of phone cameras, looking more like a press conference than a calculus lecture. Chapter 5, Section 3. I personally am very fond of that one. The problems at the end of Chapter 7 are quite interesting. You might want to try working through them when you get home. I've noticed recently that some students are still having trouble with the concepts in Lagrange's mean value theorem. I suggest you all review that on your own time to deepen your understanding. Professor Miller was a true veteran. Every sentence managed to be about the final without ever explicitly mentioning it. Ava was diligently taking notes beside him. Leo blinked, feeling a bit dazed. Why did I even wake up? I already know all this advanced calc stuff. It was just a reflex, he supposed, etched into the DNA of every college student. When the professor started reviewing for the final, sleep was impossible, especially when the person next to you was taking meticulous notes. All right, that's all for today. Class dismissed. After just half an hour, Professor Miller had covered all the key points. He ended the class without a second of hesitation. Woo! The students cheered, packing up their things and rushing for the door. The thought of going back to bed for a nap was at that moment the greatest happiness imaginable. Leo, stay behind, Professor Miller said flatly. Leo's steps faltered. He turned his head in disbelief. He was already halfway out the door. Hee. Ava shot him a gloating look before heading outside to wait. Sigh. Leo let out a long breath and trudged back. Professor Miller, you wanted to see me? Leo forced a smile. What do you think? Miller said, annoyed. The calculus competition is in 2 weeks. I need you to take it seriously, kid. He glanced towards Ava, who was standing by the door, and added in a more earnest tone, Listen, dating is fine, but your academic future is just as important, you understand? With your talent for mathematics, if you apply yourself, you could have a real future in the field. Professor Miller launched into a long lecture, using every motivational tactic in the book. Leo stared at the floor, wondering if he should take Ava for an Inferno burrito later. All right, I've said my piece. Just remember, you have to take responsibility for your own life, right? And I'm definitely not getting cilantro on my burrito, Leo thought. After being released by Professor Miller, Leo felt a wave of relief. The semester's classes were finally over. Beezy's tea. Just as he was about to suggest the burrito run to Ava, his phone vibrated again. Confused, Leo pulled it out. It was another message from Alex Young. Reed's ambushed by Rose. Kane shot. Reed's at a disadvantage. Situation is not optimistic. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you kidding me? A few hours ago, you told me they had the upper hand. Not even a soap opera has plot twists this fast. What's wrong? Ava asked, noticing the change in Leo's expression. She leaned over and saw the message on his phone. What? Kane was shot? She gasped, covering her mouth, her eyes wide with worry. If Kane was shot, what about Julian? What about the other Reed family members? How many casualties did they suffer in the attack? Leo didn't hesitate. He immediately called Alex Young. Ring. Hello? Alex, what's the situation? Where are the Reed's losses? Leo, calm down and listen to me. Alex's voice was much steadier than Leo's. He proceeded to lay out the situation on the crucible. A few hours ago, the Reeds engaged the Foam Alliance. Under Julian's command, they gained the upper hand, and their advantage was growing. But his tone shifted. Crimson Rose and Donovan Vance's men suddenly joined the battle. Even though Julian had anticipated this, he underestimated Rose's skill. At a critical moment, Kane took a bullet for Julian. Julian immediately ordered his people to scatter and retreat, which minimized the losses. Right now, the Foams are hunting down the scattered Reed members, picking them off one by one. If Julian can't come up with a plan, the Reeds might. Alex didn't finish the sentence, but Leo's heart sank. He was about to speak when he felt his hand being squeezed tightly. Ava was looking up at him. She had heard everything. She knew what Leo was thinking. He had told her before that if things got bad, he would go to the crucible. Her eyes were red-rimmed as she looked at him and said, her voice trembling, "Don't go." She couldn't bear the thought of losing both Leo and Julian. She would break. Leo was silent. Ava squeezed his hand tighter. "Don't go," she repeated. A tear traced a path down her cheek. Leo's heart ached at the sight. He reached out and gently wiped it away. "Don't worry. I'll come back. How could I not come back when you're still here? He said softly, patting her back. But just then, Alex's voice came through the phone again, stunning them both. Leo, I also advise against you coming here. Director Jensen just informed me that Marcus Lynn has made his move. He's going after Ava, and Spencer's phone was broken out of BSO custody. His whereabouts are unknown. So, if you come to the Crucible now, Ava will be in danger. The men the Reeds have left in the city are not enough to stand against Marcus Lynn. Damn it, Leo's brow furrowed. Why'd it have to be now? He should have dealt with Marcus Lynn when he had the chance. If he goes, Ava is in danger. If he stays, Julian and the Reeds can't stand against Rose. What was he supposed to do? Alex's words left Leo and Ava frozen in place. It was no longer a question of whether he should go or not. Staying behind was just as dangerous. Leo's mind raced. What was the plan? Go to Arthur Wallace, seek protection from the Warren Collective? He shook his head. He didn't trust them with Ava, but he had to go to the Crucible. Alex, can the BSO spare anyone to protect Ava? Leo asked, grasping at straws. No, Leo, Alex replied without hesitation. First of all, we don't have a manpower. And second, what do you think the BSO is? We don't work for you. We're only helping because of Director Jensen's orders. Damn it, Leo cursed internally. He was out of ideas. Was he supposed to just pray for Julian to pull off a miracle? Don't be ridiculous. Julian was smart and capable, but he wasn't a god. Fine, I'll call you back later. He hung up, hailed an Uber, and headed back to the Reed estate with Ava. They had no idea when Marcus Lynn would strike. Returning to the estate, where there were at least a few loyal men left, was the safest option. 2.5 hours later, at the Reed estate, Leo paced back and forth in the living room, trying to think of a solution. As things stood, his only option was to deal with Marcus Lynn first, then go help Julian. But how long would it take to handle Marcus? Could Julian hold out that long? Could the rest of the family? I'm sorry, Ava said from the sofa, her head bowed, her voice thick with guilt. She felt so useless, a burden. She was holding back Julian, and now she was holding back Leo, leaving him trapped in an impossible situation. Leo stopped pacing and looked at her. He knew that she was the one suffering the most right now. After a moment of silence, he smiled, walked over, and pulled her into his arms. It's okay, he soothed. I can handle it. Ava rested her head against his chest, silent, lost in her thoughts. After a long while, she spoke his name. Leo. Yeah, I'm here. I made up my mind. About what? I hate it when people sacrifice things for me. Yeah, I know. And I hate it when people give up on things because of me. Ava looked up, her eyes locking onto his. So, you go do what you have to do. Don't worry about me, and don't change your plans because of me. Whether you go to save my brother, or stay here to protect me, or even if you just walk away and wash your hands of the whole Reed family. I will support you. Leo was stunned. He never expected to hear those words from her. It was clear that she was changing, evolving beyond the spoiled, headstrong girl she used to be. A glint appeared in Leo's eyes. Inspiration struck. He let out a soft chuckle and gently squeezed her cheeks. So, if that's the case, you'll listen to whatever I say now. Yes. You won't stop me from saving your brother. No, I won't. And if I were to just leave the Reed family, cut all ties, you'd be okay with that. Yes, I would. And if I asked you to be my girlfriend, you'd agree to that too. Yes, I'd agree. Wait, what? Ava realized what she'd said. But before she could speak, Leo's lips were on hers. MMPH. Her eyes flew open. The sudden kiss caught her completely off guard, her mind going blank. This was her first kiss. One of Leo's hands cupped her face while the other wrapped around her back, pulling her tightly against him. Their lips met, and they both closed their eyes, all thought ceasing. There was no need for thought, only the gentle give and take of their kiss. After a long moment, they finally broke apart. Ava was breathing heavily, her face a deep shade of crimson as she glared at him. That bastard! Taking advantage of her while she was sad and vulnerable. Couldn't he have picked a better time? A small smile played on Leo's lips. This was the best way he could think of to pull her out of her negative spiral. He had absolutely no ulterior motives, of course. It was purely for her own good. You just agreed to be my girlfriend, right? I did not, she said, trying to sound defiant. MMPH. Leo kissed her again. He was starting to like this feeling. Soft and tender, like eating Jell-O. Yes or no? Leo, you bastard. MMPH. Yes or no? He asked again, his lips finding hers once more. Ava's eyes widened. You absolute jerk, Leo. I didn't even answer that time. She pounded on his back, finally managing to struggle free. I agree. I agree, okay? She gasped. You agree? Then give me a kiss. Get lost. Ava was at her wit's end. The heavy atmosphere, The crushing emotions. Leo had completely shattered them. Creak. As they stood locked in an embrace, the front door was pushed open. A figure stepped inside. Ava, still in Leo's arms, saw the figure and her brain short-circuited. Her eyes widened, and she let out a shocked gasp. Dad! What? Startled, Leo spun around. There stood a disheveled, unshaven man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, staring at him, and Ava with an expression of utter shock. It was Ava's father, Anthony Reed. Hi, sir. Leo managed, forcing the words out. Gotta be polite, right? Dad, it's not what you think. Ava's face was beet red. She had no idea why her father was suddenly back, but the immediate priority was to explain her relationship with Leo. However, Anthony was faster. With lightning speed, he whipped out his phone and aimed at the two of them. Click! After snapping the picture, Anthony turned around excitedly, already dialing as he walked away. Hey, honey, you will not believe what I just walked in on. Julian wasn't lying. Ava actually got a boyfriend. Of course I got a picture. Hang on, I'm sending it to you now. Leo stood there completely dumbfounded. Now he understood why the Reed family was so weird. The apple really didn't fall far from the tree. Dad! Ava panicked, rushing after him and grabbing his sleeve. Don't send that to Mom. Sorry, too late. Already sent. You. Ava gasped, pointing a trembling finger at him. Don't send it to anyone else. I just sent it to the family group chat, Anthony said, looking slightly sheepish. What? Ava couldn't believe it. She quickly pulled out her phone. It was true. He'd posted it in the family chat, and it was a perfect shot. In the photo, Ava was pressed tightly against Leo, a blush on her cheeks, both of them staring at the camera with wide, stunned eyes. Reed family chat Anthony Reed. Image Rook and Knight. Whoa. Sue, whoa. Various Reeds, whoa. Kane, whoa. Wait, Kane, weren't you just shot? And aren't you on the Crucible? I don't even have a signal. Oh, someone else must have sent it from his phone. Never mind. Ava stared at the flood of messages, her hands shaking with rage. It was too late to delete it now. Those idiots had definitely all saved it. She clenched her teeth and let out a piercing shriek. You idiot, Dad. 15 minutes later, Anthony Reed sat on the sofa, tenderly stroking his phone. Ava had nearly smashed it. Across from him, Leo curiously sized up the head of the Reed family. He wasn't what Leo had imagined. Messy hair, a beard that hadn't been shaved in days. The man looked completely worn out. At first glance, Leo thought he was some homeless guy who had wandered in. But after Anthony's little stunt, Leo had a pretty good idea of what kind of person he was. In a word, weird. What are you doing back all of a sudden? Ava sat next to Leo, arms crossed, her expression sour. She clearly hadn't cooled down yet. TSK, is that any way to talk to your great and noble father, you brat? Anthony grumbled, trying to smooth down his messy hair. Before Ava could retort, Anthony's face transformed, breaking into a warm, friendly smile as he turned to Leo. You must be Leo. Julian's told me about you. It's great to finally meet you. Anthony stood up and extended his hand. Hello, sir. I'm Leo. Leo quickly stood and shook his hand. Then he realized his hand was stuck. Huh? Leo looked up in confusion, meeting Anthony's excited gaze. So, when are you two having kids? Anthony asked. Dad, what are you saying? Ava instantly grabbed a throw pillow and hurled it at him. Thwack! Leo ducked just in time, narrowly avoiding taking the hit for his future father-in-law. The pillow caught Anthony completely by surprise, knocking him back onto the sofa. He didn't seem angry, though. Instead, he just chuckled sheepishly at Leo. Ahem. Leo, don't mind her. Our Ava, she's just got a temper. You'll have to be patient with her. This girl, Anthony continued, his voice thick with emotion, she never wanted anything to do with boys growing up. Her mother and I thought she wasn't interested in the opposite sex. We worried about it for a long time. Not long ago, Julian told us she'd found someone, but we didn't believe him. We thought maybe she'd found a girlfriend. But now, seeing that she likes boys, we can finally rest easy. Anthony looked like he was about to burst into tears. Anyone who didn't know better would think he'd suffered some great injustice. Leo's expression was grim. He glanced at Ava and could see she was about to explode. He quickly interrupted Anthony, changing the subject. Anyway, sir, you're back because... Don't get me started. That brat Julian called me in the middle of the night a few days ago, told me to bring some guys back, said he was planning something big. Anthony pulled out a cigarette. He was about to light it, but Ava shot him a glare, and he sheepishly put it away. But by the time I got back, he'd already gone off to the Crucible. Can you believe it? The moment Ava heard the words, the Crucible, she jumped to her feet. Then you need to take your men and go rescue my brother. Can't, Anthony said, shaking his head. Why not? Ava didn't understand. Anthony took a deep breath and pointed himself. Because your great and noble father was banned from the Crucible by all the other families 5 years ago. Huh. Leo and Ava were both confused. Anthony stretched, leaned back on the sofa, and stared at the ceiling as if reminiscing. Back in the day, your Uncle Chow and I. You probably don't remember old man Chow. You were just a kid. Anyway, I went to the Crucible to help him out with a fight. And then I accidentally just so happened to make a tiny little mistake. Anthony held up his thumb and forefinger, showing just how tiny the mistake was. A bad feeling crept over Leo. You made a tiny mistake, and then what? And then I blew up half the island, Anthony said wistfully. And then I was banned from the Crucible. Holy crap. Leo's eyes lit up. He looked at Anthony with newfound reverence. This guy was a legend. How careless do you have to be to blow up half an island? Leo was intrigued. He felt like pulling up a stool and listening to Anthony recount his glorious past deeds. Sensing Leo's admiration, Anthony puffed out his chest, a proud smile on his face. It's a shame, though. Old man Chow got caught in the blast. He still hasn't forgiven me. The guy can really hold a grudge. Dad! Ava couldn't take it anymore. She cut him off with a shout and shot Leo a glare. Now is not the time for this. Are you two really going to sit here and chat? Startled by her outburst, Anthony just shrugged. There's nothing I can do, even if you're worried. I can't get in. Then what's going to happen to my brother? Depends on how lucky he is, I guess. But he should be fine. I prayed for him. Ava was furious. She knew her father was unreliable, but she never imagined he was this unreliable. Leo's eyes flickered. He quickly turned to Anthony. Sir, I'd like to discuss something with you. Don't call me sir. It's too formal. Then what should I call you? If you don't mind, you could just call me Dad. It's going to happen sooner or later anyway. Thwump, another pillow came flying. Leo had no idea where she was getting them all. Leo's mouth twitched. He decided to ignore the naming convention for now. Here's the thing. Marcus Lin is going after Ava, and I'm planning to go to the Crucible to help Julian. Marcus Lin? Anthony frowned, thinking, you mean Lin Jinbai's shady son? The one who looks like a villain right out of the box. Probably. Leo didn't know who Lin Jinbai was, but shady sounded like a good description of Marcus. That kid's got a death wish. Who gave him the guts to go after my daughter? That's not important right now, Leo said quickly. What's important is, can you and your men handle Marcus? Sure. You want him dead or alive? Leo blinked, wondering if he had misspoken. He had asked if Anthony could handle him, and Anthony was already talking about a death sentence. But he had to admit, Anthony's confidence was reassuring. Leo took a deep breath. In that case, I'll leave Ava in your care, sir. I'm going to the Crucible to rescue Julian. That's fine, but can you please stop calling me sir? It makes me feel old, Anthony said, his face displeased. If you really don't want to call me Dad, that's okay. Call me bro. It makes me sound younger. Thwump, another pillow attack. This time, Anthony dodged it. Ava's fists were clenched. She shot a warning glare at Leo, who looked like he was about to speak. You dare say a word? You want to mess with the family hierarchy? Don't you know who's who around here? Thwump, thwump, thwump. A helicopter hovered over the center of the Reed family's rooftop helipad. It was their only one, brought out specially for Leo. Beside it, Ava was meticulously checking Leo's gear, patting him down from head to toe. Body armor, handgun, extra magazines, first aid kit. She had prepared everything, making sure he wouldn't forget a single thing. Anthony stood a short distance away, smoking a cigarette and watching Leo, who was starting to look like a mummy wrapped in tactical gear. Hey Leo, he called out. If it's too much trouble, we don't have to save him. Maybe that kid Julian can save himself. Leo's face darkened. Sometimes, he seriously wondered if Julian had been adopted. Ava didn't even bother to acknowledge her father. She focused on fastening the last buckle on Leo's vest. You have to be careful when you get to the island. You hear me? If you can't win a fight, you hide, you understand? If you see any wild mushrooms, especially the ones that look really tasty, you can't eat them. They're poisonous, okay? Is the only thing you can say? Ava sighed in frustration. But at this point, all she could do was trust him. Just then, the pilot gave them a hand signal, indicating it was time for takeoff. Well, I'm off then. Leo waved to Ava, about to turn and board the helicopter. Ava bit her lip. She suddenly grabbed his arm. As Leo turned back, she hooked her hand around his neck and pressed her lips against his. Click! Anthony emotionlessly snapped another photo, but Ava was past caring. After a long moment, they broke the kiss. Ava looked at him, her expression serious. I'm your girlfriend now. I just gave him my first kiss. So you have to come back. I'll be waiting right here for you. I'm not going anywhere. Leo blinked, then smiled and gently stroked her hair. Don't worry. I'll be back. Your brother and the rest of the family. I'll bring them all back. With that, Leo turned without hesitation and stepped onto the helicopter. Thwomp, thwomp, thwomp. The rotors spun to life, the whine growing louder as the helicopter lifted off the ground, gradually disappearing from Ava's sight. Anthony walked over to her side, watching the helicopter recede into the distance. He grinned. TSK, TSK. That's my son-in-law. Got a tenth of the style I had back in my day. Ava rolled her eyes. As I recall, you didn't even know how to smoke when you were in college, right? What are you talking about? Your old man never even got into high school. What college? Didn't you tell me you got into Ethelberg University with the highest scores and graduated with honors? You were little then. I was just messing with you. If I hadn't said that, would you have looked up to me as a role model and gotten into AU yourself? Ava's eyes widened in disbelief. At that moment, even with all her composure, she wanted to swear. No wonder Julian was so unflappable, so completely unfazed by all the weirdness in their lives. He'd been trained since childhood by this man. Then, when I was a kid, you said Mom was the one who pursued you. Was that a lie too? No, that part's true, Anthony said, stubbing out his cigarette. Then his tone shifted. But she only pursued me for one day. After that, I was the one chasing her. Ava's fists clenched. Just how many things had her father lied to her about? What else did you lie about? I forgot. There were too many. You idiot dad. Ava's fists flew, and Anthony, sensing danger, quickly made a run for it. Oomph. Ava snorted, glaring at her father's retreating back. You're lucky you're fast. She mentally added it to the long list of grievances she had against him. She'd settle the score later. Then, she turned her gaze back to the sky, silently praying for Leo and the others, hoping they would all return safely. Blair, on the helicopter, Leo was violently retching into a black plastic bag. He couldn't believe it. He was airsick. It was ridiculous. He had enhanced physiology. How did he get airsick? You all right there, kid? The pilot asked with concern. Leo waved a hand, signaling he was fine. How much longer? About 2.5 more hours. Despair washed over Leo. Damn it, I should have taken a boat. The thought gave him pause. What if he got seasick too? It was hard to say, since he'd never been on a boat. His face was pale. He turned to the pilot. When you guys get airsick, what do you usually do to fix it? We don't usually get airsick, the pilot replied. Right. Leo was truly out of it to ask such a question. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. A brilliant solution. Hey man, you got a stick or something? A what? The pilot looked around, rummaged for a moment, and pulled out a thin black rod. Will this work? Perfect. Leo took it and gave the pilot one last instruction. Wake me up when we're about to land. Okay. Then before the pilot could respond, he gripped the rod and brought it down hard on the back of his own head. Under the pilot's shocked gaze, Leo slumped over in his seat, completely unconscious. Low-tier skill, cheap shot. The system probably never imagined someone would use this skill on themselves. 2.5 hours later, the pilot woke Leo up. As the helicopter bounced through the air, Leo groggily opened his eyes and glanced out the window. An endless expanse of azure ocean filled his vision. In the center of it, a lone island stood silently, looking desolate and wild. He could see that the island was covered in dense vegetation, with only a few patches of exposed beach and rock formations. Within the jungle, he could vaguely make out the ruins of a city, dilapidated and broken, clearly the victim of years of conflict. Leo noticed that more than half of the island's vegetation looked new, as if it had only grown in the last few years. Compared to the other half, it looked like a patch of saplings. Thinking back to what Anthony had said, Leo's mouth twitched. That half must have been where Anthony had done his redecorating. Ugh, the nausea returned. Leo quickly grabbed the plastic bag and started heaving again. Land there, he managed to say between gags, pointing a lone figure standing on the edge of the island below. The pilot followed his instructions, setting the helicopter down on the edge of the beach. Whoosh! Leo slid the door open and stumbled out of the helicopter. A figure walked towards him. It was Alex Young. Leo, you Blair. Before Alex could finish, Leo ran to the water's edge and began vomiting violently. But after a few dry heaves, nothing came out. He had already emptied his stomach on the helicopter. Alex watched Leo's pathetic display, his eye twitching. This was the guy the Reeds were counting on to turn the tide? Ahem. Thanks. Leo took the tissue Alex offered and wiped his mouth. Your bag, kid. The pilot handed Leo his backpack and then gave him a solemn bow. Be careful, kid. I'm heading back now. With that, the pilot climbed back into the helicopter and took off. Alex looked up, watching it disappear into the distance, and clicked his tongue. TSK, that helicopter of yours. Is it even registered? How should I know? Asked Julian. I'm not a reed, Leo said as he rummaged through his backpack. Then, to Alex's utter astonishment, Leo pulled out a brown squirrel. Why did you bring a rat with you? Are you blind? It's a squirrel. Is there a difference? Of course there is. Leo's eyes widened, getting defensive. Squirrels live in trees. Rats live on the ground. Squirrels have softer fur. They're more agile. They eat less. All right. Alex cut him off. So why did you bring it? You wouldn't understand. This little guy is going to be very useful. Leo placed the small brown squirrel in his chest pocket and patted its head gently. Right, Captain Crunch? Squeak, squeak, squeak. First into battle, victory is mine. The squirrel was one of Ava's pets, temporarily requisitioned by Leo for reconnaissance and espionage. The name, of course, had also been Ava's idea. Nicholas, Captain Crunch. What, you ask, why not bring Reggie? That dumb cat was pure white and had been fed until he was fat and slow. Leo was afraid the enemy would just kick him to death. So, what's the current situation? Leo asked. Alex's eye twitched. After all this, you're finally asking about the mission? We only have a general overview. Inside the island, the Reed members have scattered. The Fongs have merged with Rose's unit and are actively hunting them. It's a cat and mouse game. The Fongs are the cat, and the Reeds are the mice. Leo nodded. The description was apt. How did Kane get shot? The battle between the Reeds and the Fongs was at its peak when that woman, Rose, suddenly charged in with Donovan Vance's private army. Julian was prepared for it. He had a team ready to intercept them. But that woman is just too damn good. She set up a sniper rifle from a huge distance and immediately targeted Julian. If Kane hadn't taken the bullet for him, the Reeds would have probably collapsed completely by now. Rose. Leo repeated the name softly. He'd heard it so many times. 15th on the Hero Index. A woman who lived on the knife's edge of life and death. Ping. Host has triggered a hidden mission. Mission content. Kill Crimson Rose. Completion of the hidden mission will grant a hidden reward. There is no penalty for failure. Leo's eyebrow twitched. The system notification, silent for so long, had returned. He'd almost forgotten he even had a system. But this mission, it sounded like a boss fight in a video game. No penalty for failure. Leo wondered. Since when was the system so generous? Whatever. He'd complete the mission if he got the chance. And if he didn't, well, he'd create a chance. It was his first hidden mission, and he was curious what kind of reward the system would give him. Could he learn to cultivate immortality? He still held onto his dream of splitting the heavens with a single sword strike. How bad are Kane's injuries? He was shot in the abdomen, but he was wearing body armor. He'll live. Leo nodded. As long as he wasn't dead. Kane was his partner, after all. Pretty boy pistol. Leo shouldered his backpack, pulled out his handgun, and did a quick check. All good. All right. I'm heading in. I won't thank the BSO for their help, since I'm technically one of you. With that, Leo started walking, a lone figure heading towards the dense jungle. Alex watched him go, adjusting his glasses. Technically, external contractors are not considered BSO personnel. TSK, you guys have that kind of discrimination here. I'm just reminding you. If you really want to become one of us, don't die. Alex paused, then added, after all, the team's impression of you. It's not bad for a psychologist. As Leo's figure grew smaller, just before he was swallowed by the jungle, Alex heard his nonchalant voice drift back. Don't worry. Even if every last person in the BSO dies, I won't. Ethelberg City, the Warren Collective. Ever since the Warren family had relocated to Ethelberg, they had maintained an extremely low profile. Just as they had claimed, they were not involved in the city's conflicts, content to simply conduct their business. But today, they had an unexpected visitor. In the main hall of the Warren estate, two men sat facing each other, separated only by a small tea table. Bartholomew Warren, the current head of the family, was smiling as he poured tea for the man opposite him. To what do we owe the honor of a visit from the director of the Bureau of Syndicate Oversight? The man sitting across from him was none other than Director Jensen. Jensen's face was devoid of expression. He picked up the teacup, downed it in one go, and spoke in a low voice. Bartholomew, I won't waste your time. I came here today to say 3 things. First, hand over the kid named Spencer Phone. Second, the people who broke into my bureau that night. If they remain alive, I can't face my subordinates. And third, consider this a warning to the Warren Collective. Jensen's eyes were cold as he stared at Bartholomew. You know why you were kicked out of the gray zone. Drop the facade. If you want a seat at the table, be prepared for total annihilation. Bartholomew's eyes flickered as he studied Director Jensen, a flicker of surprise in his mind. His operations were always flawless. How had this director of a local BSO branch figured it out? And weren't there rumors of major internal problems within the Ethelberg BSO, leaving them unable to attend to other matters? Bartholomew was momentarily at a loss, but his smile never wavered. Director, I'm afraid I don't understand what you're saying. First, I don't know anyone by that name. To be honest, it's the first time I've ever heard it. Second, regarding the intrusion at the BSO, it must have been someone trying to frame my family. Rest assured, Director, the Warren Collective will investigate this matter thoroughly and give the BSO a satisfactory explanation. As for the third point, Bartholomew's smile widened, his tone still gentle, but now carrying an undisguised threat. Director Jensen, some things are better left unknown, don't you think? You're just a director of a small branch office. To put it bluntly, in the eyes of those who truly hold power, you are nothing. So, your warning is useless to me. Bartholomew raised a single finger and pointed upwards. You need to go warn the people up there. If they accept your warning, then the Warren Collective will naturally accept it as well. With that, Bartholomew picked up the teapot and poured another cup for Jensen. Jensen's expression didn't change. He simply let out a soft sigh. He didn't touch the tea. He stood up and walked towards the exit. As he left, he glanced back at Bartholomew one last time. Bartholomew, I gave you a chance. You chose not to take it. Director, take care. I won't see you out, Bartholomew said with a smile. As Jensen's figure disappeared, another emerged from a room behind Bartholomew. Spencer Fong, his eyes filled with bottomless hatred, a bandage wrapped around his abdomen, looked much thinner than before. Bartholomew glanced at him. Pack your things and leave, he said flatly. You're not going to help me get my revenge? Spencer asked urgently. Why would I help you? Bartholomew sneered. I saved you purely to repay a debt to that old fool Victor Fong. From this day forward, my family's debt to yours is settled. He turned and walked away, ignoring Spencer. Director Jensen's appearance was completely unexpected. He needed to find out everything he could about the man, and quickly. There was something about the look Jensen had given him as he left that made Bartholomew deeply uneasy.